The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 551 Intelligence, Part 2. Since you know so much, you should know what kind of power the Rinnegan and the Outer Path Demon statue possess, right? Orochimaru asked expectantly. He had joined the Akatsuki organization in order to get close to the owner of the Rinnegan and wait for an opportunity to attack. Unfortunately, the Rinnegan was too mysterious and too powerful. He had never collected much useful information, nor had he found an opportunity to attack. Now that he had met such an insider, he had to ask him carefully. Nana Frost thought for a moment and said slowly, the Outer Path Demon statue is the body of the Ten Tails. As the chakra of the tailed beasts is collected and injected, it will slowly recover its previous strength and revive as the Ten Tails. But before it is completely resurrected, it is no different from an ordinary tailed beast. Even because it has no soul consciousness and only has instincts, its actual combat ability is much worse than that of the tailed beasts. And the Samsurai is the key to controlling the Ten Tails. It can make a person become the Ten Tails Jinkriki and completely master the Ten Tails power. What about more specific abilities? What other abilities does the Samsurai itself contain? Orochimaru asked impatiently, listening with great interest. He absolutely did not believe that the legendary Samsurai had only such a small effect. As for the Ten Tails Jinkriki, although he was also very curious, he thought that it was probably no different from an ordinary Jinkriki. Maybe it just had more chakra than an ordinary Jinkriki. After all, the Ten Tails needed to gather the chakra of the nine-tailed beasts to be resurrected. What he cared more about was the legendary eye technique. Unfortunately, Nanashiro's words were reserved, and she did not explain the difference between the Ten Tails Jinchuriki and ordinary Jinchuriki. Otherwise, Orochimaru would never look down on the Ten Tails so much. It seems that you still can't forget those eyes. Seeing his anxious look, Nanashiro shook her head. The legendary Samsurai, the eye technique that only the six paths possess. Don't you have any interest in it? Orochimaru raised the corner of his mouth and couldn't help but ask back. Qishuang rolled her eyes at him and said, I don't have as strong a desire to study as you do. Besides, those eyes no longer have any secrets for me, so I'm not very curious about them. Hearing this, Orochimaru became even more delighted and hurriedly urged, quick, tell me. Qishuang thought for a moment and slowly said, let's start with Pain. The Pain you saw is actually a special clone controlled by the owner of the Samsurai. There are 6 of these clones, and each of them inherits a part of the ability from the original Samsurai. They are named after the 6 paths, collectively known as the 6 paths of Pain. Hearing this, Orochimaru couldn't help but frown and muttered, so there are 6, and they are all clones. He had only seen 3 Pains appear at the same time at most, and thought that was just a disguise made by Pains to cover up their original bodies. Now he realized that there were more than 3 Pains, and they were all clones. Continue. Orochimaru gestured to the young man next to him. Nanashiro said slowly, Heavenly Path Pain can use gravity and repulsion. Shura Path Pain can use mechanical weapons. Human Path Pain can explore memories and capture souls. Animal Path Pain can use psychic summoning. Hungry Ghost Path Pain can devour chakra and ninjutsu. Hell Path Pain can also capture souls, but he also has the ability to resurrect the other Pains. As for the owner of the Samsurai, he has mastered all the abilities of the 6 paths. Good. Wonderful. Those eyes are so wonderful. Orochimaru applauded and praised, and his mood became more and more excited. Nanashiro continued, speaking of which, the owner of the Samsurai has a deep connection with you 3 ninjas, especially with Jiraiya. Hearing this, Orochimaru was even more shocked. He couldn't remember any connection between him and the owner of the Samsurai, and he had never heard Jiraiya mention the Samsurai. Seeing his bewildered face, Nanashiro said understandingly, back then, when you 3 ninjas were retreating from the battlefield in the Land of Rain, did you encounter 3 homeless children? Orochimaru said blankly, in the war years, there were too many homeless children. Who knows which 3 you are talking about? Nanashiro said with a raised mouth. They are the 3 that Jiraiya left in the Land of Rain and took care of personally. Is it them? Orochimaru was suddenly startled. Because Jiraiya deliberately stayed to take care of them, he had some impression of those 3 children. As his thoughts gradually became clear, 2 of the childish faces slowly overlapped with the 2 people in the Akatsuki organization. Nanashiro continued, their 3 children are named Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan. Tendo Pain was created from Yahiko's corpse, and the angel in the Akatsuki organization is Konan. As for Nagato, he is the owner of the Samurai and the real body of Pain. Jiraiya once taught them ninjutsu, so in a sense, they are also his students. Do you think there is a lot of fate between you? Then it is really a lot of fate. Orochimaru replied with a complicated tone. Thinking of this, he regretted it a little. If he had been more kind back then, maybe the Samurai would have fallen into his hands. It's a pity that the person who discovered the Samurai was Jiraiya, that idiot. Only Jiraiya, that idiot, was indifferent when he found the Samurai next to him, and didn't even reveal any information, and returned empty-handed. Then, Orochimaru suggested to the young man next to him, since you know the Rinnegan so thoroughly, why don't we capture that guy alive and snatch the Rinnegan? It's not as simple as you think. Qishuang shook his head and said solemnly, understanding is one thing, but whether you can take it down is another matter. Of all the abilities of the Rinnegan, the most troublesome is repulsion. It can instantly generate tens of thousands of tons of explosive power, with a 3-dimensional 360-degree no-dead angle, and human power is simply irresistible. In addition, it is just a pure force itself, and the target is not directly pushed by chakra, so even ninjutsu will be repelled and pushed away, or even dispersed. The most terrible thing is that the time limit of this ability is only about 5 seconds. In other words, with the cover of the 6 Paths clones, it is almost impossible for us to even get close. So powerful? Orochimaru's face couldn't help but look a little ugly. He was originally thinking about when to try his hand at Pain again, but combined with the information revealed by Qishuang and his previous record of fighting with Shiandao Pain, if he fought Pain alone, he would probably lose more than win. If he wanted to obtain the Samurai, he would definitely not be able to do it alone. Qishuang said seriously, with the abilities of the 2 of us, it should be no problem to defeat Pain, but it is still not enough to keep him and snatch the Samurai. Don't forget, there is more than just Pain in the Akatsuki organization. All your former companions are not simple characters. I think we should at least add Jiraiya and Tsunade to be more confident. I will definitely take the initiative to kill into the Hidden Rain village. I can't foolishly wait for them to slowly gather the power of the Nine Tails. So, don't ask how to match the power of the 6 Paths. As a time traveler, how could I not take action in advance if I know the future? It is a big problem whether Madara and Kagura can come out. Chapter 552, Desire. Hearing this, Orochimaru looked at the young man with a playful look and whispered, didn't you say you were not interested in the Samurai? Why are you so serious all of a sudden? Nanashi curled her lips and said helplessly, a guy who wants to rule the world by force will definitely threaten the safety of the Kirigakure. Getting rid of him is my inevitable choice. He was not interested in saving the world, but those guys who wanted to dominate the world posed a threat to Kirigakure, so he had to make plans early. Hearing this, Orochimaru pinched his chin and said, for the same reason, I should be able to find Jiraiya, but Tsunade might be in trouble. Nanashi was slightly stunned and suddenly remembered that Tsunade was afraid of blood at this time because of the death of her brother and lover. A ninja who couldn't see blood could hardly help. Then, he waved his hand and said to Orochimaru, don't worry. The strength of Akatsuki is far more terrifying than you can imagine. In addition to the core members you know, they also have mass-produced humanoid soldier. Although the individual strength is very ordinary, only slightly stronger than the genin, their number is extremely large, nearly 100,000. Once they are surrounded and unable to escape, even ninjas like you and me will be exhausted to death in the human wave tactics. It is not a joke that too many ants bite the elephant to death. If the Akatsuki organization uses the human wave tactics to besiege, and the core members are outside, except for a limited number of people, anyone who goes is going to die. 100,000 genin? Hearing this, Orochimaru was shocked. Even Konoha, where he came from, is known as the strongest ninja village. Even if all the old, weak, sick and disabled ninjas are added together, there are only about 30,000. 100,000 genin really scared him. When did the Akatsuki organization hide such a large army? Why didn't I hear any news? Orochimaru was shocked and scared. That's a full 100,000 people. It's not just 100,000 ants. If they were placed on the ground, they would be a huge mass of black. No one could ignore them, unless they were blind. But when he was in the Akatsuki organization, he had never heard of such a unit. He didn't even find any clues. In fact, you have seen those soldiers a long time ago, but you just never took them to heart. Qishuang sighed, and then said, those mass-produced soldiers are white Zetsu. Their number is much greater than you think. Hearing this, Orochimaru's face suddenly became much uglier. He had also seen white Zetsu, and even saw several at a time. He felt that they were just trash that could be killed at will, and they were just running errands for everyone to pass on messages. Therefore, he never understood why white Zetsu could occupy the position of a core member and be on the same level as them. Until now, he finally understood that white Zetsu could be ranked as a core member, not only because he could run errands and pass on messages, but also because he himself represented 100,000 mass-produced soldiers. Qishuang continued, in addition to the powerful core members of Akatsuki, its own military strength is enough to compete with the 5 major ninja villages. It is not an easy goal to kill them. We need enough patience to prepare and arrange. Besides, there are still a lot of messes in my Kirigakure that have not been resolved. I can't spare any effort for the time being. Let's postpone this matter for the time being. If it is just a fight with a few core members alone, it will be fine. But if there is a full-scale war with Akatsuki, it will definitely require enough troops to contain the 100,000 white Zetsu. And 100,000 white Zetsu is a force that no ninja village can resist. Only multiple ninja villages can unite to deal with it. To deal with Akatsuki, you must be extremely cautious. Knowing the seriousness of the matter, Orochimaru did not say a word. It was more difficult to obtain the samurai than he thought. He looked at the empty fields and sighed. Well, wait until the right time, and then deal with them. I've told you everything I know. Shouldn't you give me the person I want? Without continuing to dwell on the issue of Akatsuki, Qishuang once again pointed out her purpose. Orochimaru turned around, looked at him playfully and said, what if I don't give it to you? From now on, we are enemies. I will do my best to destroy everything you have. Let you sleep all night. Qishuang replied coldly. Orochimaru's ability to save his life is even better than that of Uchiha Obito. It is not difficult for him to defeat the opponent with his current ability, but it is basically impossible to kill the opponent. Unless it is absolutely necessary, he is unwilling to turn against him and have such a difficult enemy. Looking at the serious expression of the young man, Orochimaru couldn't help laughing and said, don't be so nervous, I'm just joking with you. Hurry up and give me the person. There are a lot of messes in the hidden mist village waiting for me to go back. Qishuang urged expressionlessly. Follow me. Orochimaru called out, then jumped down the hill and walked towards a low depression. After he quickly made a seal, a huge rock on the depression slowly moved away, revealing a deep cave. It looked like that was the entrance to Orochimaru's lair. Orochimaru led the way in front, saying as he walked, speaking of villages, I also built one in the land of rice. Do you want to go and see it with me? As he said that, he turned around, his face full of pride and satisfaction. Ninja village? I think you built a large experimental field, right? Qishuang sarcastically said, a complete village covers all aspects of people's livelihood, such as food, clothing, housing and transportation. What can you do with just your own strength? I don't need to see it. I know that the ninjas you trained must be the research products of your experiments. Hearing him say this, Orochimaru was not angry and said nonchalantly, compared with the 5 major ninja villages, my village is indeed nothing. But if compared with the small ninja villages outside the 5 major ninja villages, my village is at least medium level. If we only talk about the combat effectiveness of ninjas outside the 5 major villages, it is at least above average. Qishuang shook her head and whispered, your ninja village was established because of you, and it has no ability to develop independently. Without your support, it will not be far from extinction. That's true. Orochimaru nodded. As they talked, the two had walked into a dark stone chamber. In the center of the stone chamber, there was a huge glowing pillar. With the faint fluorescence emitted by the pillar, Qishuang vaguely saw something in the pillar. When he got closer, he found that it was not a pillar at all, but a huge cylindrical glass tank filled with clear water and a small human figure. Human specimen? Qishuang thought subconsciously. It was normal for a crazy researcher like Orochimaru to put a few human specimens in his lair. But at this moment, the human specimen curled up in the tank suddenly moved, raised its head, and looked back and forth between him and Orochimaru with its two little eyes full of spirit. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 553 Water Moon. It was at this time that Nanashi noticed that the child's face was 8 points similar to Manzuki Hazuki. This is the little guy you want, Orochimaru said quietly standing by. Hazuki's liquefied body was too troublesome, and ordinary cells could not hold Hazuki at all, so he deliberately made such a water prison to imprison him. You didn't leave any hidden injuries or other things on his body? Nanashi asked while looking around the cylindrical water tank. Unfortunately, he turned around and couldn't find the switch. Orochimaru smiled slightly and said, such a precious experimental subject, how could I experiment on him casually? Don't worry, his body is very healthy. Seeing that Nanashi seemed to be looking for something, he asked again in a sympathetic way, what are you looking for? Do you need my help? No need. I will find a way to solve it myself. Nanashi refused and pressed his right hand on the outer wall of the cylindrical glass tank. Ice release. Ice sealing technique. Chakra penetrated into the water through the wall of the glass tank and then transformed into the properties of ice and began to cool down. At the same time, noticing the sudden drop in the water temperature in the water tank, Hazuki suddenly panicked. He didn't know what the strange young man in white was going to do, but the chakra that seeped into the water gave him a strong sense of crisis. Sure enough, as soon as this thought came to his mind, he found that his whole body had lost the ability to move. Looking closely again, the water around him had all condensed into ice, embedding him tightly inside. No wonder his whole body couldn't move. At the moment, when the water condensed into ice, the entire glass water tank wall made a crisp cracking sound. Orochimaru looked in the direction of the sound, but saw spider web-like cracks on the tank wall spreading in all directions. It should be that it was broken by the expansion of the water after freezing. The cracks spread quickly and covered the entire glass tank wall in a few breaths. Bang! As if it had reached its limit, the entire glass tank wall shattered, leaving only a huge icicle in place. Open! Qishuang shouted softly, controlling the chakra to change again, causing the icicle to shatter, and then a naked white-haired little boy rolled out. So cold. Hazuki Sujetsu shivered and stood up from the pile of broken ice. This unknown guy was too dangerous. Even his liquefied body was frozen to the point of being unbearable. If it was someone else who had been hit like this, the result would be imaginable. Then, he immediately included the man in front of him in the list of dangerous people. Put it on. On the other side, Qishuang took out a set of her own clothes from the scroll and threw it to the little boy. The other party did not refuse and put it on very straightforwardly, but because of his small body, the clothes looked particularly large. I say, Lord Orochimaru, why did you bring such a stranger back today? And you are so generous to let me out to play? Hazuki Sujetsu blew a breath into his palm and asked while rubbing it. The other party allowed the stranger to let him out without stopping him, obviously tacitly approving this behavior. Orochimaru said with a hoarse voice, I didn't let you out to play, but someone from your Kirigakure wants to take you back. Kirigakure? Hearing this long-lost name, Shuai couldn't help but be absent-minded. At the same time, he also noticed the forehead guard tied on the arm of the young man in white, which was engraved with 4 ripple marks. Let's go. I've been out for a while this time. I have to go back quickly. After greeting the little boy, Qishuang turned around and prepared to leave. Unfortunately, Kizuki stood there, with no intention of moving. Seeing that he didn't catch up, Qishuang turned around and said, "Why don't you leave?" Shuai rolled up his sleeves and trouser legs, with a sly smile on his face, grinning, "Although I'm very grateful for giving me freedom, why should I listen to you? Is it because you are also from Kirigakure?" Hearing this, Qishuang couldn't help but have a headache. It is not easy to discipline a disobedient child. Orochimaru stood quietly by the side, patiently watching this little farce. Seeing that Nana Shuang didn't say anything, Sujetsu became more and more proud. He said to himself, "Although you are very strong, and I can't beat you, there is no water here, and even your ice escape can't catch me. Let's go our separate ways, and don't worry about each other." Nana Shuang shook her head, and disappeared in an instant. When Sujetsu reacted, a cold hand was already on his shoulder. After all, the speed of an adult Jonin was much faster than that of a 10-year-old child. Then, the voice of the strange Miss Ninja came from behind. "Do you think I can't do anything to you if you leave the water?" Ice escape, ice freeze technique chakra leaked from Nana Shuang's palm. In an instant, a layer of ice formed on Sujetsu's shoulder and quickly spread to the surroundings, as if he would be completely frozen in it. Not good. Hazuki Sujetsu immediately liquefied his body and scattered it in all directions, trying to avoid being frozen. However, a chill followed closely behind him. As soon as his liquid body dispersed, it was wrapped in the chill and frozen. He had no chance at all. "Little brat, your little tricks are meaningless in front of me." Qishuang shook his head at the scattered ice cubes and said, "If it weren't for your brother's deliberate request, I wouldn't bother to come all the way to rescue you. Don't be willful anymore, just follow me back." After that, he snapped his fingers lightly. Snap. The ice cubes on the ground broke into pieces, and clumps of jelly-like liquid flowed out. Then, the jelly-like liquid all gathered together, and then slowly turned into a human form, turning into the appearance of a white-haired boy again. "You said it was my brother who asked you to come to me?" Shuai asked anxiously, his eyes slightly red. He was still very young when he was kidnapped by Orochimaru, and many years had passed. The memory of his childhood was gradually erased by time, leaving only the shadow of a white-haired boy in his heart. But he will never forget that he is the brother he is most proud of, the Kirigakure ninja sword genius, Manzuki Hazuki. "Yeah." Nanashiro nodded. "Why doesn't he come in person?" the little boy continued to ask, with a hint of complaint in his tone. "He wants to come, but he can't." Nanashiro sighed helplessly. "What's the matter?" Hearing this, Sujetsu's heart skipped a beat, and he had a bad premonition. He vaguely remembered that his brother's health did not seem to be very good. It is said that Manzuki Hazuki's life force is exhausted, so he should be a dying person, right? Orochimaru next to him couldn't help but interrupt. Kirigakure couldn't hide such news at all, even he heard about it. Chapter 554, Journey. How could this happen? Shuai couldn't accept such news no matter what. After several years of separation, his brother, who he was proud of and regarded as a role model, was about to die. Nanashi sighed and patiently explained. The Kirigakure broke out in civil strife, and main Jetsukizuki experienced a series of battles, which exhausted his life force, and was beyond cure. Seeing that the strange Kirigakure who rescued him also said so, Suayu Kizuki almost collapsed. In the days when he was kidnapped by Orochimaru, he relied on his yearning for his brother, and wanted to be as strong as his brother, to support him until now. Otherwise, he would have gone crazy long ago, if he was imprisoned and studied by such a dangerous researcher as Orochimaru. No, I want to go back. I want to go back immediately, Shuai screamed, and immediately ran out, disappearing at the end of the passage in the blink of an eye. Okay, the matter is resolved. We will meet again when we have a chance. After saying goodbye to Orochimaru, Nanashi also disappeared at the end of the passage. As soon as he walked out of the cave, he saw a white-haired little boy standing not far from the exit. Hazuki looked at him eagerly and asked, "How do I get to Kirigakure?" He was too young, and he was abducted by Orochimaru, so he didn't know where he was, let alone the way back to Kirigakure. Qishuang sighed helplessly and waved, "Follow me." Then, he followed the route he remembered and walked back with Hazuki. The two figures, one big and one small, quickly disappeared into the jungle. In the cave, Kimimaro reported to a man with purple eyeshadow, Lord Orochimaru, the supplies have basically been moved, and only some that cannot be moved are left here. If you can't take them away, then destroy them all. Orochimaru said, and slowly disappeared at the end of the dark passage. This base has been known by Qishuang, so it's better to destroy it just in case. After receiving Orochimaru's instructions, Kimimaro immediately went down to make arrangements. Soon, with a loud bang, the entire base was buried by the earth and rocks that collapsed from the detonation talisman. On the other side, Hazuki Sujetsu, who was in a hurry to get back to Kirigakure, was so tired after a while that he waved his hands and said, wait. Let's take a break. After that, he lay down on a big tree next to him. Aren't you in a hurry? Qishuang stopped and said to the little boy jokingly. After all, Hazuki Sujetsu was still a child, and no matter his physical strength or pace, he could not compare with an adult like him. Ignoring his ridicule, Sujetsu lay in the shade of the tree and asked weakly, my brother, how much time do you have left? About 2.5 months. Qishuang estimated the time and replied patiently. Then, how long will it take us to get back to Kirigakure from here? Sujetsu's breathing stabilized a lot. If we go faster, it will be about 2 days, and if we go slower, it will be about 3 days. Qishuang also found a thick branch and sat down. Since we still have plenty of time, can we go a little slower? Shuayu turned over, pressed down a few dead leaves on the ground, and looked at the young man on the branch and asked, okay, but please remember to use honorifics when you talk to me next time. This is the attitude of asking for help, kid. Qishuang said to him seriously. Oh, I understand, sir. Shuayu muttered reluctantly and turned back. The situation is stronger than the person, so you have to bow your head. After resting for a while, Qishuang and the others set off again. But this time, their speed was much slower than before. Half an hour later, they arrived at the town closest to Orochimaru's lair. Then, Qishuang took Shuayu to the clothing store to change into a new outfit. After all, Shuayu was only about 10 years old, and her body shape was very different from his. It was really inconvenient to wear his clothes. It would have been fine if there was no such condition earlier, but now that there is an opportunity, it is natural to change her into a suitable set of clothes. Then, he took Shuayu to a restaurant, and after a delicious meal, the two continued to move eastward. In the evening, they crossed the border of Shiansiguo and entered the territory of Tangshiguo. Soon, they entered a small town closest to the border and found a hotel to stay. Although ninjas often sleep outdoors, Nanoshuan would not refuse if they could live more comfortably. The next day, just after dawn, Jiui Deng Shuayu hurriedly pulled Nanoshuan out of bed. Master Nanoshuan, it's time to set off. The little boy urged anxiously. While Nanoshuan was getting dressed, he said, little boy, do you understand what sharpening the knife does not delay the chopping of wood means? I don't understand. Seeing his unhurried appearance, Shuayu had no choice but to turn his back angrily. This sentence means that, before completing a task, if you do the preparation work well, it will make the task more smoothly. After dressing slowly, Nanoshuan said meaningfully, what does this have to do with us? Shuayu turned her back to him, still looking unhappy. You are so anxious to go back to Kirigakure. Have you prepared food and water for the journey? If not, what should we do on the way? Do we need to find it temporarily? It is difficult to find fresh water on the sea. Qishuang rubbed the little boy's head and said patiently. But, Shuayu lifted the hand on his head and was about to turn around to argue, but a sound of disappointment came from his stomach. Goo. Qishuang smiled and said, your stomach is hungry. If you don't let it eat enough, will you still have the strength to go back to Kirigakure? After that, he opened the door and walked out slowly. The little boy lowered his head and rubbed his stomach, and then had no choice but to follow him. After paying the accommodation fee, Qishuang took Shuayu into a small tavern that looked quite lively. This kind of place is full of good and bad people, and you can hear all kinds of interesting news and fill your stomach by the way. The two found an empty table and sat down, and Qishuang immediately called the waiter. A roast chicken, a fish, and 2 glasses of juice. He immediately ordered the menu. Please wait. The waiter hurriedly wrote it down, and then turned and left quickly. As for Xiaoyu, she lay on the table weakly, and it seemed that she was really hungry. Qishuang shook her head when she saw it, and then pricked up her ears, listening to all kinds of discussions in the tavern with relish. Suddenly, at a table near his right, a man who looked like a businessman took a sip of wine and sighed heavily. Alas, this uncle is really unlucky this time. What? Did something happen to you? His companion at the same table asked with concern. Yesterday, I was preparing to go out to sea with a truckload of goods, but I didn't expect to run into the murderous maniac, who was driven out of Tangayan village. I lost all my goods in the truckload. The businessman took another sip, and the wine overflowing from the corner of his mouth wet his collar. Chapter 555, Crazy Demon. Hearing this, the companion next to him couldn't help but comfort him. Just be content. At least you are still alive. I heard that last month the caravan, relying on 4 ninja guards, encountered that murderer and fought to the death. In the end, they were all killed by the murderer. Hearing this, the merchant who lost the goods became more and more angry. He suddenly slammed the table and said, "Tell me, why are those guys in Tangayan village so incompetent? They can't even deal with a mere rebel ninja, but let him wander around outside, causing us to lose so much stuff." The man came from Tangayan village, so it is natural that Tangayan village should take action to deal with him. However, those guys in Tangayan village not only did not deal with him, but let him wander around outside, leaving a huge safety hazard to the many pedestrians and merchants coming and going. At the same time, because of the merchant's sudden shout, the attention of the entire tavern was attracted. Being stared at by so many people was obviously a little uncomfortable. The companion smiled at everyone, and then hurriedly said to the merchant, "Keep your voice down. It would be bad if the Uian village remembers it. After all, they were just a group of ordinary people, and they could not be compared with ninjas." The many diners in the tavern did not care about it, and continued to talk with their friends at their table. It was just because of the relationship with the merchant that their topic could not help but shift to the murderer. As if knowing the seriousness of the problem, the merchant also lowered his voice, but still complained, "Those guys in Uian village are really a bunch of trash." The companion couldn't help but sigh and said, "Uian village has only been concerned with making money in recent years. The comfortable life has made them more and more lax in the training of ninjas. Now they even need to hire ninjas from other villages to do things for themselves. How can they have the energy to care about the murderer? I heard that they spent a lot of effort just to expel the murderer from the village. I don't think it's hopeless for them to execute the rebellious ninja. A ninja village that is gradually dying out. They really shouldn't expect anything." Hearing this, Qishuang at the next table suddenly thought of someone and couldn't help asking, "My friend, what does the murderer you are talking about look like? What abilities does he have?" Seeing the stranger interrupting, the businessman, who was already in a bad mood, was about to explode, but when he saw the forehead protector engraved with 4 ripple marks on Qishuang's arm, he immediately shuddered and sobered up a little, because he knew that it was the symbol of the Kirigakure ninja. In the ninja world, there are 5 most powerful ninja villages, and Kirigakure is one of them. More importantly, Kirigakure ninjas are mostly famous for their bloody brutality. If you offend this one, God knows what will happen. Then, he hurriedly squeezed out a smile and said shamelessly, this Kirigakure's lord, you can ask whatever you want." Mizuki, who was lying on the table, muttered nonchalantly, "What's there to ask about a rebel ninja from a ruined ninja village? Except for the 4 major ninja villages on the same list, he never took the other ninja villages seriously. This is the confidence of being born in Kirigakure." At this moment, the waiter came up with a tray, on which were placed a steaming roasted chicken and a steamed fish, as well as 2 glasses of juice. Xiaoyu, who was already starving, was immediately attracted by the roasted chicken and steamed fish, and he completely forgot about the murderous maniac. "Please enjoy." The waiter gently put down the plate and juice and politely left. "Master Qishuang, the meal is ready." Xiaoyu greeted, and then picked up the chopsticks happily. Qishuang shook his head, took a glass of juice from the table, looked at the merchant and gestured, "Tell me the details of the murderer." Seeing that he did not pursue his rudeness, the merchant secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said seriously, that man is a rebel ninja from the Hidden Tang village, but he is completely different from the peace-loving Hidden Tang ninjas. He is a brutal murderer. Every time he kills someone, he uses the corpse of the deceased for sacrifices or something. It's also thanks to his poor brain and he only knows some physical skills, and his skills are mediocre, so I was able to escape with my life. Sujetsu, who was gnawing on a chicken leg on the table, couldn't help but wonder, when he heard this, since his skills are mediocre, why didn't the Hidden Tang village get rid of him? Instead, let him wander around the land of hot springs? The merchant sighed, that guy's abilities are average, but he has a very unique ability, immortality. No matter what, he can't be killed. Many ninjas who didn't believe in evil went to hunt him down, but were killed by him in exchange for their lives. Hearing this, Shuayu's eyes lit up, and he said happily, immortality is really interesting. In a sense, the water transformation technique of their Gui Deng family is also immortality. Now that he has met another one in this remote place, he really wants to see it for himself. After listening to this, Qishuang seriously confirmed, does that guy believe in some evil god? He has been promoting the belief in some evil god to everyone. Yes, yes, yes. The merchant's partner nodded repeatedly and said that guy was quite pus when he was promoting the belief in some evil god, but he was not ambiguous at all when it came to killing people. I have a friend who was caught by him and forced to believe in the evil god. In order to survive, my friend had to reluctantly agree, and that's how he escaped. Later, everyone knew about this method and used it to perfunctory that guy with a bad brain. Unfortunately, after a long time, that guy still found out something was wrong. Later, he forced the new believers who believed in the evil god to go to some baptism ceremony with him. In the end, those guys who perfunctorily asked him never showed up again. We suspect that they should be dead. Qishuang nodded. This situation was very similar to the man in his memory. Then he asked the merchant, where was the last time you met him? As he spoke, he took out a simple map from his pocket. That was what he bought in the Kingdom of Soup. It depicted the general topography of the Kingdom of Soup. The merchant searched for a long time before pointing to a point on the map and said, this is where I met him last time. Looking at his situation, he should be heading west. He should be heading west now. Okay, you have nothing to do here. Qishuang put away the map and waved to the two of them. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The two of them felt as if they had been pardoned. They put down the silver and money on the table, nodded repeatedly and left the tavern. From what you said, sir, are you going to see the murderer? Shuai swallowed the meat in her mouth and asked Qishuang excitedly. Qishuang fiercely tore off the only remaining chicken leg from the roasted chicken and sneered, not only do I want to see him, I also want to kill him. Chapter 556, Dispatching. In a rainy town, 5 ninjas in black and red costumes were gathering for a meeting. Peen, what do you want to do by calling us together all of a sudden? Kakuzu asked impatiently. He was busy counting the income and expenditure of the organization during this period. Peen glanced at the man next to him whose face was half disfigured and whispered, according to the news brought back by Obito, the guy named Nanami in the Hidden Mist village may have known our overall plan. So, I decided to start capturing the tailed beasts in advance before the major villages strengthened the control of the Jinchuriki. Hearing this, Itachi couldn't help but frowned and said solemnly to Obito, you promised me that you would not attack Konoha for the time being. That was the agreement he made with Uchiha Madara, or with the current Obito, before he joined the Akatsuki organization. Within 10 years, Akatsuki will not attack Konoha's Ninetales. In return, he will work hard to carry out tasks for the Akatsuki organization. Obito did not answer, but cast his eyes on Peen next to him. Peen said expressionlessly, 1 against 7. Collecting the tailed beasts is not a task that can be completed in a short time. And there are still 8 tailed beasts outside. You don't have to worry at all. We will immediately attack Konoha's Ninetales. I just want to advance the plan and capture it slowly. Konoha's Ninetales will definitely be put last, leaving it for you to deal with slowly. Hearing this answer, Itachi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Kakuzu next to him was puzzled and said, the tailed beasts are not that easy to catch. If you don't have a certain level of strength, you will die. Right now, there are only 5 of us in the organization with high-end combat power. If we want to capture the tailed beasts, I'm afraid it's not enough. Originally, he and Scorpion died in the Hidden Mist village, and Qishuang, who Obito was about to bring back to the organization, was also detained. The Akatsuki organization is now seriously lacking in high-end combat power. So, before catching the tailed beast, we have one more thing to do. The only female among the 5 spoke. It was a beautiful woman with long blue hair and white paper flowers on her head, hanging high in the air with 2 huge paper wings. She said to Angle solemnly, "We need to add some high-end combat power." After that, 3 pieces of paper separated from the paper wings behind her and floated down to Obito, Angle, and Itachi. "On it are the targets I have been looking for recently." She continued to say to the 3 people, "Each of you 3 will take one and be responsible for introducing them into the organization." Taking the letter, Kakuzu looked at it carefully and then looked at the copies of Itachi and Obito and found that each person had a different copy. He then asked the paper winged woman, "Konan, should we act together or separately? Does everyone have a fixed target?" He felt that the target in Itachi's hand was easier and the one in his hand was a bit tricky. Before Konan could speak, Pin took the lead and replied, "In order to prevent the accidental reduction of personnel this time, I suggest that you act together so that you can take care of each other. Just introduce the target into the organization. As for the process, you decide." Hearing this, Kakuzu immediately put the letter given by Konan into his pocket and tacitly agreed to Pin's solution. Itachi and Obito also said nothing, indicating their agreement. "Okay, that's it for now, let's adjourn," Pin said expressionlessly, and then turned and left. Konan, who was suspended in the air, also flapped her paper wings and disappeared into the Damali. Only Obito, Itachi, and Kakuzu were left there. Orochimaru is also quite capable, and now is the time to use people. I think we can call him back. After Pin's footsteps faded away, Kakuzu suggested to Obito. Obito shook his head and frowned. Orochimaru has ulterior motives and has no sincerity to help the organization. Calling him back will do more harm than good. Although Itachi, who was still in the organization, also had ulterior motives, at least he would cooperate in doing things and would not be like Orochimaru, who pretended to obey but secretly disobeyed. The 3 of us each have a goal in our hands. Who will start first? Itachi, who had been silent all the time, finally spoke. Obito looked at him deeply and whispered, "Let's start with the one in your hand." On the other side, after a hearty meal, Qishuang and the other man left the tavern and walked along the avenue to explore the location mentioned by the merchant. On the way, Hazuki asked curiously, "Sir Qishuang, why do I feel like you seem to know who that murderer is?" Qishuang turned his head and looked at him and slowly said, "I have some guesses, but I haven't seen it with my own eyes, so I can't be sure. Do you have a grudge against that person?" Shuayu smiled and smiled, revealing his white triangular teeth. "No, I just want to do a good thing once." Qishuang explained as he walked. "Aren't the people of the Kingdom of Soup very afraid of that murderer? I will be considerate and help them solve this hidden danger." Shuayu, who followed closely behind him, shook his head after hearing this answer. This explanation was too far-fetched. He would rather believe that it was the murderer who offended this lord, and this time he got the opportunity and was preparing for revenge. The 2 continued to walk forward. About half an hour later, a group of people ran from the end of the road in panic, as if there was a flood and a beast chasing them. Qishuang then accelerated forward, grabbed one of them, and asked hurriedly, "You are so panicked, did something happen?" The man did not answer, but struggled desperately, trying to get out of Qishuang's control, but he tried his best, and could not shake the young man who caught him. Seeing this, Qishuang sighed helplessly and said, "It seems that you need to calm down." Then, chakra turned into cold air, and was injected into the other person's body. In an instant, the man felt an astonishing chill penetrate into his bones, as if he was suddenly stripped of his clothes and thrown into an ice cave in the cold winter, and he shivered with cold. "Master, master, master, spare my life." He begged for mercy again and again, and even the hot air from his mouth turned into white frost. "As long as you answer my questions seriously, I will let you go safely later," Qishuang said coldly, quietly withdrawing the cold air that had been injected into the man's body. "Excuse me, sir." The man felt much more comfortable after the coldness subsided, and even spoke fluently. If the piercing coldness on his body had not completely disappeared, he almost thought he had just had a dream. "What happened to you? You are so panicked?" Qishuang asked again. Hearing this, the man shivered and cried, "Sir, the murderer driven out of Tangayan village is just in front of you. You should also run for your lives." "Oh, just in front of you? That's great." Qishuang let go of his hand, feeling very happy. Unfortunately, the man was just an ordinary person. He was just frozen by him, and his hands and feet were stiff, and he couldn't use any strength. When he let go of his hand, he immediately collapsed to the ground. Chapter 557 Waste Material. "Shuayu, let's go." Qishuang called out without paying attention to the guy on the ground and immediately rushed out. "Oh." The little boy responded and hurriedly followed. When the two figures disappeared from his sight, the man on the ground breathed a sigh of relief and then rolled and crawled away. Qishuang and the other man ran all the way. After running for about a mile, they saw a man with a red sickle on his back from a distance. He was standing in a pool of blood, looking very solemn, as if praying for something. Next to him, there were 4 or 5 bleeding corpses lying in a mess. It seems that the murderer should be this guy. Shuayu hugged the back of his head and said carelessly behind Qishuang. At the same time, the man with the scythe on his back kept his praying posture unchanged when he found the two approaching and shouted loudly, "Hey, you two bastards. Don't disturb me from sacrificing to the evil god. Be careful or you will be punished by God." Shuayu couldn't help laughing after hearing this. This man is really interesting. His faith is quite devout. Qishuang stopped and didn't continue to approach, saying seriously, "It is precisely because of his devout faith that he has become like this." As he said this, he glanced at the corpses on the ground solemnly. Under each corpse, a strange blood-colored array pattern could be vaguely seen. Obviously, it was not formed naturally, but was drawn by humans. After about a minute, the man with the scythe, who was praying in the pool of blood, finally stopped. He looked at the two people who stopped not far away, and didn't disturb them, and nodded. "Well, you are respectful enough to the evil god, and you are very suitable to be the believers of the evil god." During this period of time, he has been promoting the faith of the evil god, but those ignorant people don't believe it at all, and even ridicule his faith. What's worse, in order to escape, they even pretended to believe in religion, and fooled the great evil god. It's really hateful. Now, he finally met two polite guys, and he must lead them to the seat of the evil god. Then, he walked over slowly with a big sickle on his back and shouted, "Hey, you two bastards, do you want to serve the evil god with me?" Qishuang didn't answer, but just looked down at the little boy next to him and said, "Wait for me here, don't run around." After that, he rushed out with a step, and a layer of light white light appeared on his body. The sickle man, who was devoted to preaching, had not yet realized the danger. He was foolishly preparing to promote the doctrine to the anxious guy, but he didn't intend to pay attention to him at all. He rushed to him in an instant. "You." Before he could say anything, a palm with a glowing glow was already pressed on his face. In an instant, he felt a bone-piercing chill penetrate into his brain, and then a huge force hit him, causing his center of gravity to fall back. Boom. There was a sharp impact pain on the back of his head, and his brain was like a pot of porridge that had been stirred up by someone, completely messed up, and he completely lost the ability to think. Is it done? Seeing that Qishuang succeeded in one blow and directly pressed the sickle man's head into the ground, leaving only half of his body on the ground, Shuayu suddenly felt incredible. Originally, he thought that the guy who could be expelled from the hidden Tang village, but could do nothing about it, must have some extraordinary skills. Now it seems that this guy's not mediocre at all, but simply a waste. I really don't know to what extent a dignified ninja village has fallen, so that it can't do anything about such a waste, and can only expel it. But soon, his idea was overturned. After a short silence, the two legs of the sickle man left on the ground began to struggle violently, and an angry and anxious voice came from the ground. "Asshole, let me go. Let me go." It seems that the sickle man is not dead yet. Unfortunately, no matter how he struggles, he can't get rid of the cold palm of Qishuang pressing on his face, let alone pull himself out of the ground. Instead, the angry voice gradually disappeared. Then, Shuai saw a layer of crystal ice crystals overflowing from the ground, completely freezing the half of the sickle man's body on the ground. Boom. Qishuang grabbed the other's head and pulled him out of the ground. At this time, the sickle man had completely turned into a human-shaped ice sculpture. He could only look at Qishuang with anger, but could do nothing. This guy doesn't look that great. How can he make Tangayan village helpless? Shuai walked over slowly, looking at him and asked. Qishuang shook his head and said seriously, this guy's much more dangerous than you think. But because he met me, he has no room to play. I can't see it at all. Shuai still had a face full of doubts. Then, do you want to play with him? Qishuang looked at the little boy with a playful look. Feeling the contempt in his eyes, Shuai was not willing to give in, and immediately responded, just let him out. I want to see what he can do to me. With the water transformation technique, even if he can't beat him, he will never worry about his life. What's more, he is such a mediocre waste, he believes that he has an absolute chance of winning the battle. But before that, you have to give me a drop of your blood first. Qishuang smiled more and more brilliantly. Regardless of status and talent, Sujetsu Kizuki is a leader among the younger generation of Kirigakure. But this kid is not very obedient now. He must be given a little bit of bitterness, which will also make it easier to discipline him in the future. Mysterious. Although he didn't know why, Sujetsu Kizuki still took out a kunai from his pocket, and after removing the water transformation technique on his body, he used the kunai to draw a blood mark on the palm of his right hand. Once the water transformation technique is used, the Hazuki ninja is always under the protection of the water transformation technique, and is not afraid of any sneak attacks from the enemy. Therefore, even if it is Shuai himself, he cannot cut himself with the kunai without releasing the technique, let alone draw a few drops of blood. Here, he stretched out his bloody palm in front of Nanoshuang. Nanoshuang gathered chakra in the palm of his hand, immediately condensed ice into a small cup, and collected a few drops of blood from Shuai's wound. Is it okay? Shuai retracted his palm and performed the water transformation technique again, allowing his whole body to enter the liquefied state at any time. And the wound he cut also healed quickly. That is the wound healing ability of the water transformation technique, but they can enter the liquefied state at any time. It is almost impossible for them to get injured, so this healing ability has no room to play. Nanashi looked at him seriously and warned him again, don't cancel your water transformation technique. This guy's ability is very dangerous, especially after getting your blood. What will happen if I cancel it? Seeing him so serious, Shuai couldn't help but ask curiously. You will die, killed by his one blow, Nanashi said solemnly, and removed the ice from the sickle man. Itachi, who was exterminated at the age of 13 and later died in battle in his 20s, had similar facial features. Maybe it was a mistake in the painting, or maybe it was because the character's face matured prematurely. So, I also said hidden at this age, to be similar to the later age. Judging from the time, the current hidden is about 15 or 16 years old. However, it doesn't matter. If he meets Nanashi, he is destined to die young. Chapter 558 Spell. Bang. The ice exploded, and the man with the bloody scythe on his back immediately escaped. You two bastards, go to hell. He swung the scythe with 3 rows of sickle blades, and attacked the 2 people who were close at hand. Ding. Qishuang used a hand protected by semi-fluid ice to pinch the sickle blade, and said calmly, your opponent is not me, but this ignorant kid. After that, he glanced at the little boy next to him. Because of his height, the opponent's sickle directly passed over Shuai's head and only hit him. Then, he used his other free hand to quickly wipe Shuai's blood on the opponent's sickle blade, and then quickly retreated. The opportunity has been given to you. It depends on your performance. Feeden. Qishuang said meaningfully. Hidden? Shuai was a little surprised and turned around and asked, is that his name? There's a flaw. Before Qishuang could answer, the man with the sickle who found the fighter plane immediately aimed the blood-red sickle at Shuai's head and chopped it down. Unfortunately, the reason why Hazuki Shuai dared to be distracted in this situation was naturally because he relied on the characteristic of water transformation technique that was not afraid of any harm. Wow. The blood-red sickle chopped down on his head and immediately split him in half. Water clone. Fiden was stunned for a moment. The expected scene of blood plasma spurting did not appear. The opponent's body turned into a clear stream. He immediately retreated in a few flashes, stretched out his tongue to lick the blood on the sickle blade, and sneered, "What about clones? From the moment I took your blood, you were destined to die." Although he was frozen and unable to move, he could see clearly that the little ghost gave his blood to the white-clothed bastard. And just now, when the white-clothed bastard was resisting his attack, he smeared the blood of the little ghost on his sickle blade. Although he didn't understand what the other party wanted to do, he was still happy to help discipline the disobedient child, because he could curse the opponent remotely through the opponent's blood. Then, he pierced his foot with the tip of the sickle, and then quickly drew a circle on the ground with the bleeding soul, and then drew a triangle in the center of the circle. A blood-colored array pattern was formed in an instant. At the same time, the liquefied Qishuang regained his human form. Seeing the blood-colored array pattern, he instinctively felt that there was some danger. Then, he pointed his 2 index fingers at the sickle man and the array pattern. Water style, water cannon technique chakra gathered on the index finger, and then transformed into the attribute of water, and 2 compressed water beads shot out from his fingertips like bullets. Too late, kid. Accept the judgment of the evil god. Fiden stood motionless in the array pattern with a grim smile. However, his skin all over his body became extremely black at this moment, and there were also strange white marks. Puff. 2 compressed water bullets hit him without any fancy moves, and instantly pierced his chest. At the same time, Qishuang, who was 10 meters away, suddenly felt a sense of oppression in his heart. But before he could come to his senses, 2 big holes suddenly appeared on his chest. It was as if he was pierced by some invisible attack. What's going on? Qishuang was shocked. He didn't see the other party attacking at all, and he was inexplicably pierced through the chest. It was really incredible. Fortunately, his body was always protected by the water transformation technique, otherwise he would have been killed by this one. At the same time, seeing that Qishuang's chest had 2 holes, but he looked completely fine, Fiden was also stunned. How could it be? He has a curse power in his body, which can use the opponent's blood to connect the opponent's life with his own through the curse, so that the 2 will prosper together and suffer together. In other words, under the curse state, once he is injured, the opponent whose life he connected will also suffer the same injury. But with the blessing, curse, of the evil god, he has an immortal body. No matter how serious the injury is, he will not die. Therefore, he can use this self-torture method of cursing the same life to kill any opponent. But now, the damage he suffered is also reflected on the opponent's body, but the opponent's body is like water, without any substantial damage at all, not even a trace of blood. It even quickly recovered to its original appearance. This is really weird. Hey, kid, what's the condition of your body? Are you still a human? Fiden frowned and asked loudly. Qishuang was immediately furious and cursed. You are not a human. Haven't you heard of the water transformation technique of the Kirigakure Kizuna clan? No. Fiden shook his head very simply. He has never been out of the country of rivers, and he is afraid of everyone. No one is willing to talk to him, and he knows very little about the situation in the ninja world. Hearing his righteous answer, Qishuang was choked. Facing such an idiot, no matter how much he explained, it was meaningless. Then, he took out his kunai and rushed straight towards Hiden. Seeing this, Hiden took out a short stick from his waist and shook it gently, and a sharp spike extended from the front of the short stick. It turned out that it was a retractable short spear. I don't believe I can't kill you. Originally, Qishuang thought that the opponent would launch the invisible attack again, but he didn't expect that the opponent would turn the tip of the spear and aim at his heart. Puff. Bright red blood dripped onto the ground along the tip of the spear. Hiden pierced his chest very decisively. Qishuang was very puzzled. At the moment, when the opponent's sharp spear pierced his chest, a hole in his chest inexplicably opened at the position of his heart. Although he was not really injured due to the protection of the water transformation technique, this sudden attack really scared him. He stopped immediately and didn't dare to move forward. Why is it still useless? Fiden was also dumbfounded when he saw his blood flowing out while his opponent was safe and sound. At the same time, Qishuang slowly walked towards him and patiently explained to Shuyu, this guy knows a strange curse technique that can temporarily link his life with the opponent's life through blood and use self-mutilation to synchronize his own injuries to the opponent, thereby killing the opponent. But he himself has an immortal body and will not die from self-mutilation. So, once an ordinary person is obtained by his blood, he is only one step away from death. Hearing this, Shuyu immediately understood the truth of being hit by the invisible attack just now. Seeing that the curse was ineffective and the white-clothed bastard was approaching again, Feiduan hurriedly pulled out his short spear and rushed towards Qishuang with a scythe. Since the curse can't kill that kid, then I'll kill you first. He threw the scythe out with a grim smile. With the sound of whirring wind, the bloody scythe dragged a long rope towards Qishuang's face. He was going to die anyway, so he might as well let Feiduan show off. It couldn't be in vain. Chapter 559 Strangling. A fool with strong limbs and a simple mind. You want to kill me? It's wishful thinking. Qishuang didn't dodge and grabbed the sickle blade that was coming. You're dead. Seeing him grab the sickle blade with his bare hands, Feiduan couldn't help but show joy. Then, he grabbed the long rope extending from his waist. In order to facilitate the recovery of the bloody sickle blade, he deliberately tied the other end of the rope to his waist. At this moment, the bastard in white grabbed his sickle blade with his bare hands, and with a slight pull, he could cut his palm and bring back the blood. Bang! Feiduan grabbed the rope and pulled it back hard, and the originally soft rope suddenly tightened. However, the result was completely different from what he imagined. The sickle seemed to be stuck in the bastard's hand, and he couldn't pull it at all, let alone bring back the bastard's blood. There are many people who can wrestle with me, but you are definitely not one of them. Qishuang snorted coldly, grabbed the sickle blade, and pulled it back hard. A huge force came from the other end of the rope, and Feiduan was startled. He staggered and was immediately pulled away by the rope, tied around his waist. Although there is a gap compared to professional power ninjas, Nana Frost's body is much stronger than ordinary ninjas, after experiencing the baptism of the seed of immortal art. Therefore, unless it is a real power ninja like the Raikage, ordinary ninjas can't wrestle with him at all. Feiduan's immortal body gives him the ability to be immortal, but it does not give him strong physical strength. From the moment you threw the sickle at me, your fate was doomed, idiot. Seeing the opponent being dragged over, Nana Frost opened his free right hand and pressed it towards Feiduan's face again. Facing ordinary people, Feiduan's method of wrapping the rope around his waist is quite convenient, but facing opponents with stronger strength than him, it is a meal. And he can't escape. The rope that used to recycle the sickle has become his death rope. You underestimate me, bastard. Because he was tightly entangled by the rope, Feiduan had no way to avoid it. He shouted angrily, gave up the idea of struggling, and stabbed Qishuang's head with the short spear in his hand. As for the palm, that was reaching out with a glittering glow, he completely ignored it. He was blessed by the evil god, and would not die anyway, but he didn't believe that the bastard in front of him had similar abilities. In exchange for life, the final winner would only be him. Ding. Because the short spear increased the attack distance, Feiduan's short spear pierced the opponent's eyebrows first. Unfortunately, he did not see the expected scene of brain disintegration. The tip of the spear was blocked by the layer of glittering glow on the opponent's body surface and could not move forward. How is it possible? He couldn't believe his eyes. Nothing is impossible. Qishuang's right hand followed closely and pressed on Feiduan's face again. Why do you think I dare to grab your sickle with my bare hands? Why do you think I dare to take your spear? He sneered and pressed down his strength slightly. With a loud bang, he pressed Feiduan's head into the ground again. From the beginning, you had no chance of defeating me. Otherwise, why do you think I dared to let you out, after knowing the danger of your spell? Chakra gathered in the palm of the white-clothed bastard's hand, and an astonishing chill hit Feiduan's scalp again. Unable to move, he didn't want to experience the feeling of being frozen again, and hurriedly begged for mercy. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. If you don't want to become a believer of the evil god, then forget it. I won't force it. Although this is very embarrassing, and damages the face of the evil god, he can't care so much at the moment. Everything will be discussed after he escapes. Sorry, I deliberately came here just to bury you, the unforgivable murderer. Qishuang said righteously. There must be a reasonable reason for killing. Although Fidwen and him had no grudges, his ability was too incomprehensible, similar to the causal magic of Buddhism. Once he was hit, he could not avoid it, and could not resist it. Except for the special body of Sujetsu, few people were not afraid of the curse. Qishuang was very afraid. In addition, in his memory of his previous life, Fidwen became a member of the Akatsuki organization. Although the other party has not joined the Akatsuki organization yet, he still thinks it is safer to kill this dangerous seedling in the cradle in advance. As for recruiting, he had thought about it on the way here, but Fidwen believed in the evil god, and was a devout believer. It was impossible for him to abandon his doctrine, and put down his butcher knife. Even if he was taken back by force, it would only make the Hidden Mist village have one more panic killer. He could only kill this guy under the pretext of doing justice for the heavens. Fortunately, this guy himself was an unforgivable killer. Otherwise, Qishuang really couldn't do it. At the same time, hearing his righteous words, Fidwen was immediately furious. Knowing that there was no hope of escaping, he immediately yelled hysterically, "You bastard, wait until I ice release, ice sealing technique." Unfortunately, before he could finish his words, a shocking cold air surged through his body, and in an instant he was frozen into a human-shaped ice sculpture. Seeing that Fidwen was quickly dealt with in a few seconds, Shuai came up and asked curiously, "Sir, how are you going to deal with this guy?" "Of course I'm going to kill him, and get rid of the harm for the people," Nana Frost replied seriously. Shuai couldn't help laughing after hearing this, and said, "This sentence coming from your mouth is not credible at all. Because of their special living environment, most of the Kirigakure ninjas are cold-blooded and ruthless, and good things like getting rid of harm for the people have never been isolated from them. If this murderous demon appeared in the land of water, it would be fine, but this is the land of rivers, and it has nothing to do with them." He didn't believe that Nana Frost, who was born in Kirigakure, would take action for such a boring reason. There must be a deeper reason. "Let's go. It's time to go back." Qishuang picked up the frozen Fidwen, greeted Shuai and started walking. "This ice is airtight. Even if we throw him in the wilderness, he will slowly suffocate to death, right? Why do we need to take him away deliberately?" Shuai followed behind with her head in her arms, saying nonchalantly. Qishuang explained as she walked, "You don't understand. This guy's immortality is very special. As long as his body is not completely destroyed, he will not really die. Being trapped in my ice is just a sleep for him. When the spell completely fails, he will still be full of energy." "Oh, what if we split his head in half?" "That won't work either?" Shuai asked curiously. Qishuang sighed helplessly and said, "Didn't I say it? As long as his body is not completely destroyed, he will not really die. Don't even mention splitting his head in half. Even if you cut him into pieces, he won't die. When his flesh and blood are reorganized and healed, he can be resurrected. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 560, Burial at Sea. What? Sujetsu was shocked and couldn't help but look at the frozen Hidden for a second. This immortal body is really too weird. What if we burn him to ashes? He can't be resurrected like this, right? Sujetsu thought seriously and said, "Well, this method is possible." Nanashiro nodded and said, "The flesh and blood burned to ashes completely lose their vitality and cannot be reversed back to cell tissue. Even if they are immortal, they will die completely. However, I have a more suitable method for us to deal with him in the style of Kirigakure." "What method?" Sujetsu hurriedly followed and asked curiously. Nanashiro turned his head and uttered two words to the little boy meaningfully. "Water burial." On the other side, Obito and the other two rushed to the land of Earth first and found a boy who could use clay bombs in a small town outside the hidden rock village. "Who are you, and why did you just break into my house?" the boy said casually while kneading the clay. "We want to invite you to join our organization, Deidara," Obito said immediately. "Just you?" Deidara looked up at him, his eyes full of mockery. At this moment, the wooden floor under Obito's feet suddenly broke, and a huge centipede more than 3 meters long jumped out. Itachi and Kaku standing behind him could see clearly that it was a centipede made of clay. It must have been the boy who needed the clay and quietly put it under the wooden floor. Unfortunately, although the clay centipede's attack was very fast, it was still not as fast as Obito's idea of activating the hollow ability. The centipede used its huge body to coil Obito in the center, tightening more and more, until finally, it twisted itself into a twist, but it didn't tie anything. What's going on? Deidara's smile froze on his face. He clearly saw his clay centipede entangled the other party, but there was nothing in the centipede's embrace. Obito ignored him and turned to look at the two people behind him, saying helplessly, "It seems that we need to let him think seriously about whether he wants to join our organization. Who will go first?" Kakuzu took the lead and said, "I'm not interested in children." "Then let me do it." Itachi walked out slowly, his eyes already turned red. At the dock of River Country, Nanashimo and Mizuki had already boarded the passenger ship to Water Country. Accompanying them was the unlucky Hidden, who was frozen into an ice sculpture. Perhaps because he killed too many people and became notorious, the people of River Country applauded after seeing him like this. Even the ship owner was very happy to waive Nanashimo's fare, let them take him to Water Country for free, and provide them with food and accommodation on the way. Although Nanashimo did do a great thing for them, it contained more of his selfishness. Being thanked so enthusiastically made him feel unworthy. The ship sailed for about half a day, and estimated that it was far enough away from the coastline. Qishuang called out to the little boy on the deck, "Suayu, today I'll show you what water burial is." After that, he picked up the human-shaped ice sculpture next to him, and immediately jumped from the deck to the sea. Suayu hurriedly followed him. However, the two of them suddenly got off the boat, which scared the sailors on the deck. "Sir, aren't you going to take the boat?" A sailor leaned on the side of the ship and shouted loudly to the two people on the sea. He didn't have the ability to walk on the water like a ninja, so he didn't dare to chase them. "Just drive forward, we will catch up in a while." Qishuang stood on the sea and responded loudly. After getting the reply, the sailors on the deck finally had a bottom line in their hearts. After carrying the humanoid ice sculpture for a distance and completely leaving the route of the passenger ship, Qishuang stopped and said solemnly to the little boy beside him, "The so-called water burial is a burial method that uses fish and shrimp in the water to deal with the body." Suayu nodded in sudden enlightenment. He thought it was a burial method that threw the body directly into the water and let it decay freely. Then, Qishuang took out a kunai from his pocket, and after changing the chakra into the nature of wind, he poured it into the kunai. Then, Suayu saw that a 3-foot translucent light blade suddenly extended from the sharp edge of the kunai. It was not until then that he realized that this adult could not only use ice escape, but also wind escape. Because the only escape technique that can attach a translucent energy light blade to a weapon is wind escape. This is also the usual way of using wind escape ninjas. By using the cutting characteristics of wind escape, a stronger chakra light blade is created, thereby obtaining a stronger weapon lethality. Release. Qishuang controlled the chakra and shouted softly, immediately unblocking the ice on Feiduan's neck, revealing the whitened skin underneath. As if guessing what he was going to do, Feiduan wanted to beg for mercy in fear, but his whole head was frozen, and he couldn't even blink, let alone make a sound. It was also thanks to Qishuang that he had just unblocked the ice on his neck, that he could barely shake his head twice, otherwise he would have been unable to do anything. Unfortunately, although he saw the plea for mercy in Feiduan's eyes, Qishuang still had no intention of letting go. He said to him helplessly, "I'm sorry, although we have no grudges, you are too dangerous. And the people of the river country don't welcome you very much, and hope you die completely. If there is an afterlife, don't believe in that evil god cult anymore." Hearing this, Feiduan's eyes changed from the weak state just now, but instead became a little more hateful and resentful. It seems that he has completely broken the jar. Whoosh. Qishuang held a kunai and blankly slashed across Hiden's neck that was exposed outside the ice. The wine-style light blade attached to the kunai was extremely sharp, and it easily helped him cut through the muscles, sever the spine, and cut off the opponent's head. Remove. At the moment when Hiden's head was cut off, Qishuang completely lifted the ice from Hiden's body and used chakra to lift his body to the surface of the water. The blood gushing from the headless body dyed the water area of nearly 10 meters red. At the same time, completely freed from the control of the ice, Hidden was finally able to speak. The head floating on the sea surface cursed, "You blasphemous bastard, you will definitely be punished. The evil god will definitely give you the most terrible punishment." Qishuang slowly squatted down, looked at the shouting head of Hidden and said, "I don't know whether I will be punished by the evil god, but I know that you will be punished by this sea." As he said that, he glanced at the 10 o'clock direction in a signal. Shuai looked over and saw several triangular fins coming out of the water. They were sharks. Sharks have a very keen sense of smell and can easily smell any blood within 10 kilometers. They have already smelled the feast that Qishuang sent. Chapter 561 Return to the village. The shark was very fast, like an arrow from a bow, and in a few breaths it rushed to the blood-stained sea. Knowing what he would face next, Feliduan screamed in fear. No, unfortunately, his head and body were separated, and he could not control his body to dodge at all. He could only watch the fierce shark approaching step by step. "You blasphemous bastard, you will definitely be punished by God. The evil god will give you the most terrible punishment." He cursed loudly and hysterically, and cursed to the utmost. The sharks swimming in the water found the bloody corpse and the humans on the water. They instinctively sensed that there was a dangerous breath from those humans. They wandered around the corpse and did not dare to move. As time passed, more than a dozen sharks gathered around. In the end, the sharks' bloodthirsty instincts overwhelmed their fear of danger. The largest shark rushed to Feliduan's headless body first, and the rest of the sharks followed closely. "Goodbye, Hidden." Looking at the head that was still cursing, Qishuang sighed softly. The leading shark bit Hidden's headless body and dragged it under the water, but the other sharks were not polite to it. They were not human beings, and they did not know any courtesy. They only knew that, if they were slow to eat, they would not even have the leftovers to eat. The sharks rushed forward and tore Hidden's body into pieces in the water in just a moment. "I curse you bastard." Seeing this scene, the only remaining Hidden head even had red eyes. Even if it is immortal, if it is digested by sharks and turned into feces, there is no possibility of resurrection. Dead without a burial place refers to his situation. Unfortunately, the sharks under the water will not have a trace of pity for his pitiful experience. Hidden's body is so small that it is not enough for more than a dozen sharks to share. Those sharks that did not grab the food immediately focused their attention on the only remaining head of Hidden. "I curse." Before he finished speaking, he was dragged down by a shark underwater. A red flower bloomed in the shark's mouth, and Hidden's head completely disappeared. "Let's go." Seeing Hidden's body completely disappear in the shark's mouth, Nanashiro greeted Shuai with mixed feelings, and then chased after the passenger ship in the distance. Unfortunately, there are unexpected events. On the way back to Kirigakure by boat, they encountered a storm. Thanks to the help of him and Shuai, two ninjas, the passenger ship was not completely destroyed by the storm. The original 1.5 days of the journey were dragged for 3 days. On the third day, after going to sea, Nanashiro's passenger ship arrived at a pier on the edge of the main island in the center of the land of water. As soon as he got off the boat, Nanashiro was spotted by the mist ninjas stationed at the pier. Meetings, Master Nanashiro. A small team of mist ninjas came up in a hurry. At the same time, they also found the little boy following closely behind Nanashiro. The little boy looked sneaky, and his purple eyes kept looking back and forth at them. He didn't look like an ordinary person. However, being looked at by such a little kid, everyone couldn't help feeling a little uncomfortable. It was just because Qishuang was present that everyone didn't dare to get angry, so they had to endure it. Seeing the passers-by around him casting curious eyes, Qishuang winked and led the group to the open space next to him. "What's the matter?" he asked with a frown. These guys left their posts without permission, and they must have something to ask him. The leader of the mist ninja immediately bowed his head and replied, "Report to the adults. The food supplies for the Cloud Village have been delivered 2 days ago, but because the adults are not here, no one can remove the cold lock on Kiribati, so they only delivered half of it temporarily. The remaining half, they said they will wait until Kiribati is completely released before they will deliver it. Therefore, the Mizukage-sama asked us to keep an eye on your whereabouts." Once we find you, we will immediately notify you to return to the village as soon as possible. Oh, I forgot about this. Qishuang scratched his head with a smile. Ming's eclipse release cannot be used for the time being. Samehuda is also in his hands, and no one in the Hidden Mist village can remove his cold lock. Then, he instructed several people, you go and inform the Hidden Mist village that I'm back. I will release Killer Bee today and ask them to transport the remaining food supplies to the Hidden Mist village for me. Yes. After receiving the answer, the group quietly withdrew. It seems that you are doing well in the village? Just after landing, someone came to ask for instructions. Shuai, half of his body stuck out from behind Nana Shuang, and said with a grin, I told you to use honorifics when talking to me, kid. Nana Shuang frowned and immediately gave the little boy a slap on the face. Unfortunately, Shuai was always protected by the water transformation technique. He only splashed water on himself when he knocked down with his hand and did not touch the other party's entity at all. Return to the Hidden Mist village. Not wanting to argue with him anymore, Nana Shuang took a step with a dark face. Wait for me. Shuai, who had recovered his body, hurriedly followed. Even after arriving at the land of water, he still had no memory of the way to the Hidden Mist village. Soon, the Cloud Hidden Grain Transport team, which was anchored at another port, also received a message from the Hidden Mist ninja. However, for the sake of caution, they did not unload the goods immediately, but instead sent a few faster Cloud ninjas to rush to the Hidden Mist village to confirm the news. About half an hour later, Qishuang and the others finally arrived at the Hidden Mist village. The guard at the door was very excited to see Qishuang and immediately shouted inside, Sir Qishuang is back. What? Sir Qishuang is back. Sir Qishuang is finally back. When he is not here, the Hidden Mist village always feels something is missing. The news spread from 1 to 10 and from 10 to 100. Soon, the whole Hidden Mist knew the news of Qishuang's return. At the same time, Kirigakure, who was singing for his fellow Cloud Ninjas in the square, was also so excited that tears welled up in his eyes, and even the words he was singing were immediately changed. Idiot, bastard, that guy is finally back. Master Kirigakure can finally leave this damn place. These days, because of the request of his elder brother, Kirigakure lowered his food standards. The original big fish and meat were gone, and he was given a bunch of simple tea and plain rice. It is said that it is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. Kirigakure finally understood how true this sentence is. The sudden reduction in food standards caught him off guard, and he even lost his appetite. Look, since the departure of the wreckage, he has lost a lot of weight. Not only did he lose the circle of fat that he grew after coming to Kirigakure, but even his original fat was gone. He was much thinner than before he was captured by Kirigakure. The subordinates of the Kumo ninja felt very uncomfortable seeing his pitiful appearance, but due to the Raikage's order, they had no choice but to accompany Master Kirigakure to enjoy simple tea and plain rice. Even if they occasionally craved, they could only avoid Kirigakure and eat a little secretly. Even so, the Kumogakure ninjas who stayed in Kirigakure to accompany Kirigakure also lost a lot of weight. Nanashiro's return was the best news for them. Goodbye, Hidden. Chapter 562 Freedom. Next to Kirigakure, his cellmate Shigeki also heaved a long sigh of relief upon hearing the news. This annoying octopus bastard is finally leaving. Not only does he sing awfully, but he also sings all day long. If he hadn't been locked up by this damn cold chain, he really wanted to strip Kirigukure's shorts and plug that annoying stinky mouth. At the Kazuna family, a servant rushed into the inner courtyard from outside and shouted loudly, Man! Lord Manu! Lord Nana Shuang is back. The Manu clone, who was basking in the sun in the inner courtyard, immediately perked up when he heard this. He immediately turned his head and looked at the visitor and asked anxiously, did he come back alone? No. The visitor waved his hands and replied loudly, I heard that when Master Qishuang came back, there was a boy of about 10 years old beside him. Hearing this, the Manu clone's eyes suddenly turned red, and he immediately called out to the attendant next to him, it must be Shuai. Quickly push me out. Push me out quickly. Cough cough cough. But your body. The attendant hesitated and did not act immediately. Stupid, this is just my clone. Cough cough cough. Man, you clone was so angry that he coughed violently. As a clone, he copied everything of the original body, naturally including the weakness and illness of the original body. Hearing his reminder, the attendant immediately came to his senses. Master Hazuki Manyu's original body has already dormant, and only this clone is walking outside, so many times they subconsciously forget that this is just the master's clone, not the original body. Since it is just a clone, it is naturally nothing to worry about. Then, several attendants pushed the wheelchair out of the yard in a hurry. After passing through the gate of Kirigakure, the bleak scene in front of the young Hazuki was stunned. Although he had no impression of Kirigakure, he still knew clearly that Kirigakure was one of the 5 major ninja villages and one of the most prosperous cities in the world. There were simple sheds all over the ground, and there was not even a complete building. It was not worthy of the status of one of the 5 major ninja villages. Sir, are you sure you didn't go the wrong way? Shuai looked at the young man in white next to him suspiciously. Qishuang rolled his eyes at him and said unhappily, how could I go to the wrong place even where I live? The situation you see now is much better than when I went out a few days ago. Although Kirigakure is still dilapidated, with the return of the fleeing people and the increase in population, the progress of cleaning up the ruins is getting faster and faster, and it is changing every day. Compared with the first few days, the scene of broken walls on the ground is much better. How could the dignified Kirigakure become like this? Shuai asked curiously. You should go home and ask your elder brother about this question. I can't explain it to you in a few words. Qishuang dismissed him impatiently. This person has been brought back to Kirigakure, and he has given an explanation to Maingetsu Kizuki. Hearing this, Shuai seemed to wake up from a dream, and immediately murmured, yes, I want to go home, yes. Qishuang pointed to the northeast and said, the residence of the Maingetsu clan is over there, go by yourself. Yes. Thank you, Master Qishuang. Shuai hurriedly thanked him, and turned away without looking back. Seeing his thin figure disappear from sight, Qishuang couldn't help but reveal a relieved smile. Along the way, Maingetsu Kizuki called Master countless times, but only this sentence was from the heart. As soon as Shuai left, a group of cloud ninjas surrounded him again. Nanabe, please follow the agreement and release Lord Kirabi. Unlock the cold chains on him. The leading cloud ninja suppressed his excitement and said solemnly to the young man in white, okay, I got it. Nanabe waved her hand and said, urge your people to transport the remaining food and supplies to Kirigakure village. No problem. The leading cloud ninja winked at his companions next to him, and someone immediately went to the village entrance. As soon as they arrived at the village entrance, the cloud ninja in charge of delivering the message ran into his companions from the port ship who came to Kirigakure to confirm the news. Nanabe has returned and promised to release Lord Kirabi. Please immediately transport the remaining food and supplies to Kirigakure. He said to his companions seriously. Okay, I understand. Then, the cloud ninja who came to inquire about the news turned back happily. Nothing made them happier than Lord Kirabi's escape. When he thought of this, he felt that he had endless energy, and his speed was much faster than when he came. On the other side, Qishuang, surrounded by a group of cloud ninjas, came to the square, where Kirabi and others were imprisoned. Idiot, bastard, you are finally back. Hurry up and help me untie these cold chains. Seeing his figure, Kirabi shouted loudly in his unique singing voice from a distance. Being locked here and unable to go anywhere is too uncomfortable. He has never been so eager for freedom as now. Seeing his happy look, Hashiga Kikisame next to him couldn't help but feel a little envious in his heart, but this little emotion was just born and was extinguished in his heart. Born in the Anbu, he learned to control his desires very early so that he would not be tempted and used by the enemy. He must not yearn for freedom. Hurry up, I can't wait to run around outside. Looking at the young man who was approaching slowly, Kirabi urged again. So many days have passed. 1 minute won't make a difference, right? Qishuang looked at him playfully and said, brushing the cold chain with his fingers, but he didn't make any further moves to cancel the spell. Seeing this, Kirabi became more and more anxious and couldn't help crying and saying, please, you've locked me up for so many days. Just stop playing around, okay? Let me go. After saying that, He squeezed out a few tears and pretended to be tearful. Seeing this, Qishuang no longer wanted to tease him. It was really unbearable to see a 7-foot-tall strong man forced into such a pitiful state. Then, he injected a trace of chakra into the cold chain and made a seal. Release. With a light shout, he used the trace of chakra just now as a guide to cancel all the changes in the spell on the cold chain. In an instant, the 5 cold chains bound to Kirigakure broke into pieces and then fell to the ground, turning into wisps of white steam and disappearing. Ha ha ha, I'm finally free, Kirigakure shouted loudly while dancing with joy and then rushed out like a gust of wind. Just like he said just now, he was going to run a big circle wantonly. These days, he was really suffocated. Especially for someone like him who is particularly energetic. He was locked in a place with a radius of only 3 meters, and he had no way to vent his energy. He almost thought he would suffocate to death in the Hidden Mist Village. Chapter 563 Sewing. Seeing Hoshigaki Kisame lying on the ground, staring at Kirigukure's receding back, Nanashiro squatted down and asked, "What do you think when you see him free again?" Kisame turned around and sneered, "You think that this can make me surrender? You underestimate me, Hoshigaki Kisame. I was born in the dirtiest Anbu in Kirigakure. What I have seen, heard, and experienced are far more cruel and rich than you can imagine. We in Anbu have used this kind of method of combining kindness and force countless times. It doesn't work on me. Don't waste your time, just kill me." After that, he closed his eyes, looking indifferent. Seeing this, Qishuang shook his head helplessly and said, "Don't worry, if you really don't want to be used by me, I will definitely kill you. However, I have a good patience and I won't kill you for a while." "Oh. Then I have to thank Master Qishuang for his gift." Hoshigaki Kisame opened his eyes, but there was still a faint smile on his face. "Why don't you tell me why you want to join Uchihirobito's camp and betray the Hidden Mist Village?" Qishuang asked curiously. This question has already been answered in his memory of his previous life, but now, he doesn't want to hear Hoshigaki Kisame repeat it again, but wants Kisame to give him an answer. This is a kind of spiritual torture. Just like the police will still routinely torture the criminals after catching them. Letting them speak out themselves will cause a heavy blow to the prisoner's will, making it easier to remove their psychological defenses and take the next step. Especially people like Hoshigaki Kisame, because he was born in the Kirigakure Anbu, he received special training from the Anbu, and his psychological quality is much stronger than that of ordinary ninjas. Ordinary coercion and inducement can't do anything to him. Nana Frost did this to open a breakthrough in thought and will, and to conquer Hoshigaki Kisame's psychological defenses. Only in this way can this unruly shark be completely tamed and driven by oneself. Poor Hoshigaki Kisame really thought he was just curious, and because he was locked here for a period of time, it was too boring, and there was no one to talk to, so he was a little suffocated, so he didn't have any defense at all. Although there was a killer bee singing from morning to night next to him, it not only couldn't relieve his boredom, but even made him feel a little bored. If Nana Frost wanted to find out information about Obito, he wouldn't say a word, but if he talked about other things, it was not impossible. Then, he turned over slightly, leaned against the bronze tripod, and sighed. "Ordinary Miss Ninja, like you have never seen how dirty and hypocritical this world is." "Really?" Qishuang showed a suspicious look. "Do you know what I did in the Anbu?" Kisame sneered and asked back. Qishuang shook his head and said, "The last civil war caused the files of the mist to be lost or damaged. There are not many intact ones. I didn't find your file. I'm doing confidentiality work. I'm responsible for protecting the village's intelligence security and preventing intelligence from leaking." A trace of pride and hatred flashed across Kisame's face. "Protecting intelligence? That's very important." Qishuang said meaningfully. "Yes, it is indeed very important." Kisame responded heavily, but to Qishuang, it seemed to have a little more hatred. Kisame continued, "Although we are in the name of protection, if there is a risk of information leakage, we will kill all those who know the information without hesitation to ensure that the information will never be leaked. However, in many cases, our strength is not enough to protect the security of intelligence, and in the end we can only kill our companions to prevent future troubles. Until now, I still remember it clearly. In my Anbu career, nearly 2/3 of my companions were killed by me personally. Only the remaining 1/3 of the lucky ones received my real protection. Do you know how sad and hypocritical it is to kill the companions you were supposed to protect with your own hands, Lord Nanashiro? As he said that, he looked deeply at the young man in white next to him. Not daring to look directly into those angry and hateful eyes, Qishuang stood up, looked at the slightly hazy sky shrouded in fog and sighed. So, you start to resent the village that gave birth to you and raised you? No, I don't. Kisame's eyes returned to calm again. He looked straight ahead and said, I'm just very disappointed in it. I'm disappointed in this hypocritical and sad village. I'm disappointed in this hypocritical and sad world. So, when Uchihiro found me and told me that he could change the world, I joined his camp without hesitation. Qishuang lowered her head, looked at him seriously and said, Obito was lying to you. Kisame shook his head and replied seriously, I don't know whether what he said is true or false, but at least he gave me hope and a direction to work hard for. Staying in the hidden mist village is just repeating the old cycle. Such a life has no meaning at all. Even if he is lying, I hope to make it a reality with hard work. Hearing this, Qishuang sighed deeply. Longing for the future? That's a good ideal. But Kisame, do you know that the direction you are working towards is wrong? Qishuang looked at the shark face quietly and sighed. Being denied, Hoshigaki Kisame couldn't help but feel a little angry. He sneered and asked back, then may I ask, Master Qishuang, what direction of effort is the right one? Hearing him ask this, Qishuang breathed a sigh of relief. In order to tame this unruly shark, it is necessary to innovate in thought and make it completely loyal. But if you force your own ideas into it, Hoshigaki Kisame will definitely strengthen his psychological vigilance and even disdain his words. Therefore, Qishuang can only guide him step by step, so that he can automatically adjust his thoughts and ideas unconsciously. And these words are actually a sign that Hoshigaki Kisame began to reflect on himself, and his psychological defenses were opened. The seeds of new thoughts began from this. Qishuang thought about it seriously, then pointed at the surrounding environment, and said to Kisame, you have been locked here by me for more than half a month. Now, I want to ask you, what do you see here? Kisame sneered and replied without hesitation, the ground is in a mess, broken walls, profiteers are making money, and it's a bleak scene. Is it really just like that? Qishuang looked at him deeply, with a meaningful smile on her face, and said, I think you need to take a closer look. As for the question you just asked me, the answer is here. One day, when you find the answer I give you, it may be the time when you are free, or the time when you die. Take another closer look. After saying that, he walked leisurely and disappeared between the newly built low sheds. Only Hoshigaki Kisame was left leaning on the bronze tripod with a confused look on his face, not knowing what to say. Chapter 564 Return. Qishuang walked along the new gravel street towards the Mizukage building, because that was where Ming's temporary office was. On both sides of the street, there were already many sheds. Various simple shops opened their doors, and various goods were placed inside, including daily utensils, oil, salt, sauce, vinegar, or blades and weapons. On the street, there were scattered pedestrians, vendors, and merchants coming and going. Qishuang even saw a group of 7 or 8-year-old children playing on the street, adding a bit of vitality to the slightly deserted street. Although there is still a lot of gap compared to the pre-war Kirigakure, the current Kirigakure is much better than the period when the war just ended. Looking around, the ruins on the ground of the entire Kirigakure have been cleared up, with only some debris left near the edge of the protective wall. I think it will be cleared up in the next 2 days. However, after the ruins were cleared, some low temporary sheds were built on the ground of the entire Kirigakure village. So the whole village looked a bit empty, like a poor rural town. It was no wonder that Gui Dengshuyu suspected that he had taken the wrong road after seeing him for the first time when he entered the village. Hello, Lord Qishuang. Hello, Lord Qishuang. Along the way, people saluted him one after another, some in awe, some in admiration, and so on. Just when Qishuang was going to the temporary office of Shuang, Gui Dengshuyu asked along the way and soon came to a very dilapidated, but very familiar mansion. Outside the main gate, a white-haired young man sitting in a wheelchair, surrounded by several servants, seemed to be looking for something. Just when he appeared, the young man locked his eyes on him. You. I finally waited for you to come back. The Manu clone sat in a wheelchair, with red eyes, and tremblingly stretched out a hand to the boy. There was no need to deliberately distinguish, relying on the appearance that was 70% similar to him, and the special induction between blood relatives. He recognized at a glance that it was his brother, Gui Deng Shuyu, who had been missing for many years. Nizen. I'm back. On the other side, Qishuang crossed the street and soon arrived at the temporary office of the Mizukage. The original big tent has been replaced by a simple shed, and the area occupied has also increased a lot. Hello, Master Qishuang. The two guards at the door greeted him when they saw him. Yeah. Qishuang nodded and asked again, is Master Mizukage in there? The guard on the left smiled and joked, Master Mizukage is working in there. She has been talking about it a lot during your absence these days. They have been on duty here for a while, and they are familiar with this master, so they dare to talk like this. Just don't talk about how to beat me. Qishuang shrugged helplessly, and walked straight in. There are many more people in the office, coming and going, all working in an orderly manner. I think Ming has reorganized the entire government system of Kirigakure during this period. Continuing along the corridor, Qishuang pushed open a door with the blue word water printed on it. Opposite the main entrance, behind a desk, a beautiful lady in a blue dress was staring at him. Why did you take so long? Meditarumi said with an unhappy look. After gently knocking on the door, Qishuang patiently explained, it took a while to find that guy Orochimaru, and when I came back, I encountered a storm at sea, so it took a little longer. I heard that you brought back a little boy. That's Sujetsu Kizuki? Without further pursuing the issue of his late return, Meditarumi changed the subject. Yes, it's Sujetsu Kizuki. Qishuang walked to the desk and said slowly, Maingetsu Kizuki wanted him to inherit the position of the leader of the Maingetsu clan, but Sujetsu Kizuki is only in his early teens, still a child. He is too young. He can be an heir, but I don't think he can inherit the position of the clan leader directly. After that, he shook his head. Whether in terms of force or qualifications, Sujetsu Kizuki is not qualified to inherit the position of the leader of the Maingetsu clan, even if he has the support of Maingetsu Kizuki's old subordinates. In addition, Kitsune Mizuki has been away from home for many years, and is somewhat alienated from the clan. He does not have the support of the people. In this case, it is already very difficult for Kitsune Mizuki to secure a position of successor for him. So, after Kitsune Mizuki passes away, the position of the head of the Kitsune family will be vacant for a while. Terumi Mei said while thinking. If Kitsune Mizuki wants Kitsune Mizuki to take the position, then he can only leave the position of the head vacant, and wait until Kitsune Mizuki is qualified enough to succeed him as the head. After all, everyone has selfish desires. Once someone else succeeds, Kitsune Mizuki may not be the next head. Only when the position of the head is vacant, Kitsune Mizuki, as the heir, has a chance. Hearing the meaning of Meng's words, Qishuang said, it's not that simple to leave the position of the clan leader vacant. The remaining elders of the Kizuna clan will not agree. Now that Kizuna Maingetsu is still alive, they won't do anything wrong. But when Kizuna Maingetsu dies, it will be out of his control. That's true. Meditarumi nodded after listening, pinching her chin and said, do you think that the Kizuna clan will have another civil strife for the position of clan leader? Qishuang thought for a while and nodded. It's very likely. People's hearts are unpredictable, and some things are unpredictable. It is not uncommon for people to fight against each other for a little bit of petty gains, not to mention a village like the Hidden Mist village that is dominated by the law of the jungle. Although Ming has issued a decree to suspend all killing rules, the survival rules of decades have been deeply rooted in people's hearts and cannot be completely forgotten in a short time. Therefore, if Kizuna Maingetsu dies, the possibility of a civil strife in the Kizuna clan for the position of clan leader is very high. Well, the family affairs of the Ghost Lantern clan have nothing to do with us. Just don't drag other people into it. Let Ghost Lantern Manayu worry about it. Qishuang waved her hand, not wanting to continue to dwell on this topic. When I came back, I saw that the ruins on the entire ground had been cleared up. Has the engineering department made the planning drawings? He asked the blue-skirted lady behind the desk seriously. Hearing this, Terumi Medi was furious and immediately raised her eyebrows and said, "What are you talking about? In the past few days, people from all walks of life have been requesting to start infrastructure reconstruction work. If you hadn't said at the beginning that there were other arrangements, I would have asked them to start work long ago. Why would they wait until now?" After saying that, she angrily pushed a thick stack of documents on the table in front of Qishuang. They were all requests from below to start infrastructure reconstruction work. No one likes to live in a simple and small shed. Many Kirigakure residents are eager to rebuild their homes and improve their accommodation and living environment. She only temporarily suppressed it with the excuse of having other plans. But as the number of request documents increased, she also felt the pressure. Chapter 565 5 people. I'm just asking you about the situation and preparing to deal with it, Qishuang replied with a wry smile and picked up a few files to check. On them, everyone's demands for the start of reconstruction were indeed recorded. Then, he put down the file and asked the blue-skirted beauty again, "Where are the planning drawings? Have the planning drawings of the engineering department been completed?" "Not yet. It will probably take another week," Terumi replied helplessly. As the ruins were cleared, the progress of the planning drawings of the engineering department began to improve slowly. If you want to completely complete the design plan, it will definitely be slower than the clearing of the ruins. Well, I'll start making arrangements tomorrow. As for today, I'd better get a good night's sleep first. I've been tossing around on the sea these days, and I can't even sleep well. Ahaha, Qishuang yawned a little tiredly. He is not a fisherman near the coast, and he is not used to the environment at sea. The passenger ship was bumpy all the way, which greatly affected his sleep. Seeing that his complexion was indeed not very good, Terumi did not continue to force him to stay, and whispered, "Then you have a good rest, and we'll talk about the rest tomorrow." "Well, I'm leaving." Nana Shuang waved goodbye and turned to leave. On the other side, Maingetsu Kizuki convened a clan meeting and formally introduced Sujetsu to all the clan members, which was also a justification for him. But when he expressed his desire for Sujetsu to inherit the position of clan leader, the clan members almost unanimously opposed it. No one wanted to be pointed at by such a 10-year-old kid. Several elders in the clan clearly expressed their firm opposition and wanted to find another talented and virtuous person from the clan to succeed the clan leader. Maingetsu Kizuki had no choice but to temporarily suppress his thoughts and prepare to find another way. At the same time, Obito and the other two brought two new partners to the location of the last target, the Kingdom of River. According to the intelligence, the murderer is nearby. Why didn't the five of us find any trace after searching for a long time? Kakuzu said impatiently. Conan gave the material with a photo of the target attached. The man was carrying a large blood-red sickle with 3 rows of sickle blades. He looked extremely arrogant and was very easy to identify. But even so, he still couldn't find the other party, which made him a little angry. Could it be that he is one of yours and posted the wrong photo? Deidara sat on a branch and laughed at the people on the ground. Conan, it's impossible to make such a low-level mistake, Obito said expressionlessly. Why not catch someone and ask him? Itachi suggested. Then, Obito turned his head and stared at the big tree where Deidara was and ordered, "White Zetsu, let your clone catch a living person." "No problem." A white human face appeared on the tree trunk and replied, "Huh." Seeing White Zetsu appear, Deidara immediately jumped off the branch and looked at the white face curiously and said, "I didn't expect that there is another one hidden in this tree trunk." He was sitting on this tree, and the distance between the two was very close, but even so, he still didn't notice anything. It was really interesting. Don't pay attention to him. He's just a coward who can only help run errands. Looking at White Zetsu, Angle said with undisguised contempt. White Zetsu did not refute, and disappeared into the tree trunk again. "Hey, don't go. Let's talk more." Deidara knocked on the tree trunk hurriedly, but unfortunately White Zetsu ignored him. Not long after, the 5 people saw White Zetsu coming back with a man hostage. Kakuzu senpai, that guy called White Zetsu, does he know the Earth Escape stealth technique? How come I didn't notice him at all when he left? Deidara asked the green-eyed man very seriously like a curious baby. Kakuzu replied nonchalantly. He does know how to use Earth escape and would escape to sneak, and he is very good at it. But what you are seeing now is another white Zetsu. There is more than one white Zetsu, you will see them slowly in the future. Hearing this, Deidara's eyes lit up, and he nodded repeatedly. More than one? That's really interesting. I feel more and more that joining your organization is the right decision. Yeah, it's really interesting. After saying that, he nodded again, with a happy smile on his face. Seeing white Zetsu approaching with hostages, Obito glanced at his fellow tribesman next to him and whispered, 1 against 7, I leave it to you. Itachi didn't say anything, but walked up directly and answered with practical actions. He took out the target person's file from his pocket, pointed to the photo on it, and asked the man, tell me, have you seen this guy? As he spoke, Itachi's eyes had turned scarlet, and 3 black magatama in each eye were slowly rotating. He used illusion hypnosis on the hostages, captured by white Zetsu. The man, who was originally terrified because he was caught by the monster, calmed down immediately after being caught. No, I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but I've heard about it. He replied woodenly and mechanically. Then what have you heard? Itachi asked again softly. The man continued to reply mechanically. I heard that a few days ago, a master from the Kirigakure passed by and took care of this murderous devil. Kirigakure again. Hearing such an answer, Obito couldn't help but frown slightly. Now, the Kirigakure village has become the second village that he is concerned about after Konoha. Itachi paused for a moment and asked again, are you sure that the murderer is dead? The man seemed to think for a moment, and then replied, no one saw the execution process of the Mist Hidden Lord, but many people saw it. The Lord took him out to sea. Out to sea. Itachi did not ask again, and turned to Obito and said, he is no longer in the river country. I don't think there is any need to continue looking for him. At the same time, the white Zetsu standing behind the man asked Obito with a playful look, what are you going to do? Are you going to look for him in the water country? Obito thought for a moment, waved his hand and said, no need, we have added 2 new friends, which is enough for the time being. Let's go back. After that, he activated the right Mangekyou Sharingan, opened a vortex in front of him, and sucked himself in. There are many capable people in the ninja world, and there is no need to deliberately go to the water country for such a guy and provoke the sensitive nerves of that person. This guy's ability to go anywhere at any time is really too convenient. Seeing Obito's figure disappear, Deidara sighed with emotion. It's just like an elegant art. Yes, it's art. He nodded solemnly again. Let's go too. Kakuzu called out to the others and started walking. What about this guy? The 5th man who had been silent under the tree finally spoke. He glanced at the man who was hypnotized by the illusion and still had a dull expression and asked, what are you going to do with him? You are interested in such an ordinary person? Kakuzu looked at him suspiciously. The 5th man said nonchalantly, after death, everything is the same. What's the difference between the funerals of ninjas and ordinary people? Chapter 566 Planning. Since you like it, I'll give it to you. White Zetsu smiled heartlessly, looking like he didn't care at all. Itachi said nothing, and turned away silently. Deidara was quite curious, and asked the 5th person with great interest, hey senior, what do you want to do with such an ordinary person? Give him a grand funeral. Let him say his last goodbye to this world. Do you think this is meaningful? The 5th person became more and more excited as he spoke, and even took out 2 pieces of linen from his pocket. After covering himself with a piece of linen, he handed the remaining piece to Deidara and said, do you want to try it, kid who plays with plasticine? He noticed that Deidara often had a ball of clay in his hand. That's not plasticine, that's art. Art that makes beautiful sounds. Deidara's neck immediately turned red when someone called the detonating clay plasticine. Okay. Art. It's art, right? Seeing the boy's serious face, the 5th man had no choice but to change his words, handed over the sackcloth in his hand, and asked again, do you want to hold a funeral for that guy with me? Deidara shook his head and refused decisively. I have no relatives or friends with that guy, and I'm not interested in holding a funeral for him. But I'm very curious, what kind of funeral are you going to hold for him, senior? Wait, you will know. The fifth man didn't say much and tied up the unfortunate man with a rope. Kakuzu and Itachi had already walked away, and White Zetsu had also sunk into the ground and disappeared. Only Deidara, the curious baby, was patiently waiting for the senior to hold the so-called funeral. In the Hidden Mist village, Qishuang went directly to the engineering department the day after returning. "Hello, Master Qishuang." Seeing him appear, everyone in the engineering department saluted. "You continue to be busy with your own things. I will see how far the planning drawings have been completed." Qishuang immediately sent them away. Then, everyone returned to their respective posts, continuing to measure, calculate, and draw. Only one idle assistant was left to explain to him. "My lord, please follow me." Then, the assistant took Qishuang to the center of the hall, where a huge map was hanging. "This is a new architectural plan of the Kirigakure village." The assistant pointed to the map and said. Qishuang nodded and began to look at the map carefully. It was a floor plan of Kirigakure. The circular protective wall enclosed the entire village. The entire area of Kirigakure village was a huge circle. Inside the wall, there were countless streets of all sizes that divided the huge Kirigakure village into small areas. Some areas were also marked with specific surnames. I think they should be the resident areas allocated to each family. As for the more detailed ones, there were no marks on the map. After all, if it was divided into individuals, the workload would be too heavy. It's easy to arrange the ninjas, but how do you plan to arrange so many ordinary people? Qishuang asked solemnly. It is true that there are many ninjas, but compared to the ordinary people of the entire Kirigakure village, they are very rare. Today, Kirigakure has exceeded 300,000 people because the war has been settled and the population has recovered. Although it has not yet completely recovered to the pre-war level, it has more than half of the population. And the close relatives of all Kirigakure ninjas add up to only more than 20,000 people, and the ratio with ordinary people can be imagined. The village can designate a station for these well-known Kirigakure ninjas, but the more than 300,000 ordinary people may not be able to be designated. The assistant pointed to the map and replied, "To answer your question, there are commercial areas, residential areas, training areas, etc. on the entire map. We plan to arrange all the people in the residential area and randomly assign them. If they have any ideas, they can exchange with each other privately. It should satisfy them all." Kirigakure village originally had a population of nearly 500,000, but now there are only about 300,000 left, with a shortage of nearly 200,000, and there are 200,000 more idle stations for the population to exchange. The freedom of choice for the people is still very high, and there is always a piece of land that can satisfy them. Random allocation plus free exchange. It's fair, not bad. Qishuang nodded. Then, he pointed to the blank area on the map and said, "How long will it take to complete the rest?" "It will take at least 5 days. The assistant thought for a while and replied seriously, "Okay, give me the planning drawings as soon as possible." Qishuang patted the assistant on the shoulder and turned to leave the engineering department. Then, he came to the temporary office of the Mizukage. "Didn't you say that you would start arranging the construction work today?" Seeing him come in, Terumi asked immediately. "Well, I have already started preparing. I just came back from the engineering department after looking at the drawings." Qishuang replied while closing the door. "Then how do you plan to start?" Terumi asked, putting down the pen in her hand. "You will know later." Qishuang deliberately whetted her appetite and then looked at another female assistant in the office and said, "May, go to the communications department and ask them to notify all the big and small families to send a representative to come here for a meeting. I have something to say." That was an assistant recently recruited by Terumi, who was responsible for helping with miscellaneous tasks. Yes. May left quickly. With the operation of the communication department, the news quickly spread to the ears of all the big and small families. And because it was the first time that the master called for a meeting, everyone came very diligently. In less than 10 minutes, hundreds of people gathered in the open space outside the Mizukage's office, and even Miss Ninjas came one after another to join in the fun. However, Qishuang had no intention of keeping it secret, so she did not expel those guys who came to make up the numbers. "Why are you here too? Didn't they say that we can just send a representative?" Qishuang said, looking at a wheelchair next to her. On it sat the clone of Maingetsu Kizuki, and the one pushing the wheelchair was Maingetsu Kizuki. I have something to ask you, so I took this opportunity to come here. Ahem. Maingetsu said slowly. It's not possible now, I'm still preparing for a meeting. Qishuang said as she glanced at everyone. No hurry, no hurry. Maingetsu waved her hand. Estimating that most people had arrived, Qishuang jumped onto the roof of the Mizukage's office in an instant. Everyone, please be quiet. Seeing him speak, the originally noisy crowd suddenly fell silent. Without any polite words, Qishuang immediately said, I notified everyone to come here today, just to talk about the infrastructure reconstruction work of the Hidden Mist Village, so that everyone can have a general idea in advance, and it is convenient for everyone to prepare in advance. What arrangements does Lord Qishuang want? Someone asked loudly and impatiently. Because Lord Mizukage ordered that no major construction was allowed for the time being, they had to live in a small and simple shed during this period. Earlier, when the civil strife was just beginning to settle, the situation was very difficult, so everyone just made do with it, and did not have much objection. But as life gradually settled down, the simple and small residence naturally could not satisfy everyone. They all couldn't wait to tear it down and rebuild a comfortable residence. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 567 Reasonable. A stone stirred up 1,000 waves, and the rest of the people also asked, and the crowd became lively again. Quiet, quiet. Qishuang motioned everyone to be quiet, and then said, the engineering department is planning the layout of the Hidden Mist Village, and it will be completed in a few days. As for the layout of the residences of each family, it is also based on the previous old sites, and there will not be much change. If everyone is not satisfied at that time, you can go to the engineering department to coordinate. Excuse me, sir, can we start construction now? A voice came from the crowd. Qishuang shook his head and said solemnly, I don't have fixed requirements for the architectural style of each household, but I hope that you can strictly follow the planning of the drawings and carefully arrange the layout of the buildings in the residence. So, please get the drawings and layout before starting the reconstruction, and don't act recklessly. Isn't it just repairing a house? Why is the sir so troublesome? Someone muttered impatiently. Hearing this, Qishuang glared at the man fiercely, and he shrank his neck in fear. Seeing that everyone was also indifferent, he cursed angrily, you bastards. Do you understand the drainage system? Do you understand the lighting angle? Do you understand the street layout? Do you understand the terrain direction? If you build it as you like, what will happen to the Hidden Mist Village? Hearing his anger, everyone was silent, not even daring to breathe. Then, Qishuang pointed to a man nearby and asked sternly, if your neighbor next door builds illegally and raises the underground sewer a little, do you know what will happen? This is not a big deal, right? The man scratched his head and said embarrassedly, you idiot. Water flows to the lower place, and the sewage poured into the sewer by your family will flow back. Don't you know? Your sewage can't be discharged, and it will overflow in the end. Qishuang cursed angrily. There was nothing to say, and the man returned to the crowd angrily. Qishuang pointed out another young woman and asked, if your neighbors built illegally, blocking all the light from your house, you would not see the sun all year round. You finally got a holiday, and you had to rely on electric lights to get up early in the morning to put on makeup. How would you feel if you had to take 2 big detours to go to the street, or even climb over the eaves and walls? The young woman did not answer and returned to the crowd with a gloomy face. If that happened, she would probably want to kill someone. After giving 2 examples in a row, seeing that everyone seemed to be thinking about something, Qishuang struck while the iron was hot and said, you guys who only know how to kill people, how can you understand architectural layout and reasonable planning? Even for the repair of the house, you have to hire extra people to start the work. If there is no planning drawing, and you build it as you like, what will it look like? This time, everyone did not refute, but listened to the scolding quietly, and finally understood the importance of reasonable planning. After venting, Qishuang felt much better. He slowed down his tone and said to everyone, I called you together this time. Besides this matter, I have a few other things to say. Please speak, sir. Everyone expressed their opinions in unison. Qishuang said slowly, the garrison area allocated to you is private property. I want you to finance the construction on your own. Hearing this, one of them asked cautiously, isn't there any financial assistance from the village? No. Qishuang waved his hand and said seriously, the village's money needs to be used to repair other public facilities, such as schools, streets, sewers, etc. We even have to pay to support those poor people. We don't have so much spare money to support you. The man said with a sad face, but I can't take out so much money to repair my house. Qishuang rolled his eyes at him and said, who asked you to completely restore the house in one go? Can't you do it step by step and slowly raise money for the repair? You are all ninjas, and your income is far better than that of ordinary people. It should not be difficult for you to just do the initial repairs of your respective residences. After being scolded by him, the man also changed his mind. The repair work of the residence does not need to be completed all at once. Some unnecessary furnishings can be left alone for the time being, which can save a lot of expenses. Then, Qishuang continued, there are also commercial areas on both sides of the streets. This is the public property of the village, the core area of economic prosperity, and the area with the highest cost of reconstruction. Given the current situation of Kirigakure, the village simply has no financial resources to fully restore it. In the past, the village rented out shops in the commercial area to everyone for operation, but now, the buildings on the ground are completely destroyed, leaving only empty land. So I decided to rent the land to everyone at zero rent, and within 10 years, no rent will be charged. Hearing this, the ninjas below were in an uproar. Meditarumi, who was hiding and listening, couldn't sit still, and immediately jumped onto the roof. Why did you give them zero rent? That's the main source of Kirigakure's fiscal revenue. The blue-skirted beauty asked him anxiously. In addition to the bounty for the mission commission, the main source of the village's fiscal revenue is the taxes and rents in the commercial area. Kirigakure is the largest city in the Land of Water, with a permanent population of nearly 500,000 before the Civil War. With a large population base, the business is naturally prosperous. Although it can't compare to Konoha, there is no other city that can compare, except the 5 major villages. With the prosperity of business, the rent of the shops will naturally rise. Especially in peacetime, the income from mission commissions has dropped sharply, and the village's finances are very dependent on the taxes and rents of the commercial district. It was fine to say that the tax cuts were given earlier, but now even zero rent is thrown out. She really can't help but be anxious. Seeing the anxious look of Meditarumi, Nana Shuang hurriedly pulled her aside and whispered, my Mizukage, with our current financial resources, it is not enough to repair the commercial district. What's more, Kirigakure is now in economic depression, and the value of our shops is not as good as before. With the personality of those merchants who don't get up early without profit, if they don't see the possibility of making money, they will not rent our shops in a short time. And once those merchants are unwilling to invest money, Kirigakure's economic recovery will lag behind. As a result, we spent a lot of money to barely repair the commercial district, but did not get the expected benefits. Then you gave them the commercial district for nothing, and this will restore Kirigakure's economy, Meditarumi said suspiciously. Although she was more skilled in handling government affairs, she was still confused about economic issues. Of course. Qishuang smiled and asked, I'll give you a piece of land for free, and you don't have to pay rent for 10 years. Do you want it? This? Meditarumi hesitated. Not paying rent is of course good, but there is nothing on the land, so it seems useless to rent it. Attracting investment, making money out of nothing. Does it sound like the common land development we see? Ha ha ha. Chapter 568, Attracting Investment. Seeing her hesitation, Qishuang smiled and said, even someone like you who doesn't know how to do business would be tempted, let alone those people who only like to make money. These 10 years are enough to restore the economy of Kirigakure, and it is not impossible to even take it to the next level. And they only need to get a piece of land and operate it well in these 10 years, and they can make a lot of money. But there is nothing on the land. How can they operate and make money? Meditarumi was still confused. If there is nothing, let them build it themselves. Otherwise, why do you think I would let them use it at zero rent? Qishuang had a smug smile on her face. Oh, Meditarumi suddenly realized, and said with a smile, no wonder you said before, that we need them to willingly pay for our village. It turns out, that we are waiting for them here. Isn't this just a different way of collecting their 10 years rent in advance, and using it to build the village? Qishuang shook her head and said, there are still some differences. It will definitely not take 10 years of rent to rebuild a shop, and it is completely different for us to pay for the construction, and for them to pay for the construction. We pay for the construction, which is our investment. And with the current sluggish economic situation in Kirigakure, the time to earn war dividends has passed. If they don't see much profit in the short term, they will not rent our shops for a long time, which means that we will not be able to make a profit for a long time. And they pay for the construction, which is their investment. It takes a lot of money to rebuild shops and other infrastructure. Once their money is invested, they can't give it up casually, otherwise they will lose everything. I can use this method of attracting investment to tie them to Kirigakure village and prevent them from leaving, even if they want to. In this way, we can save money and effort and use their money to activate the market and accelerate the economic recovery of the Hidden Mist village. Seeing that he was talking so well, Terumi couldn't help but sigh. It's a waste of your talent if you don't become a businessman. Otherwise, I'll give you the position of Minister of Finance. No, I don't like being bound to a fixed position. Qishuang waved her hands repeatedly. Okay, I understand what you mean. As for how to deal with it next, just let it go. I will do my best to support you. After solving the doubts, Terumi immediately got off the roof and went back to the Mizukage's office. Seeing her leave, Qishuang signaled everyone to be quiet again and continued, the land in the commercial area can be rented to everyone at zero rent, but it cannot be transferred privately. This is to prevent some cunning guys from speculating in real estate. Although there is no real estate in this world, there have been such guys as businessmen in the past and present lives. They only pursue profits, and once they see that there is profit, they may hype up the real estate market. Now is not the time to speculate in real estate, and he will never allow anyone to plot this. Below, a middle-aged ninja stepped out and said, Lord Qishuang, there is nothing on the ground. Do we still need to fund the construction of the infrastructure ourselves? Yes. Qishuang nodded and said, this is why I plan to rent it to everyone at zero rent. For any land rented out, the infrastructure must be built for me. No matter what you plan to do, I don't care, but the infrastructure must be completed. Then, another guy wearing glasses stepped out and said, then can we keep it simple? After all, it takes a lot of investment to build it from scratch, plus the daily operations also require a lot of funds. I'm afraid we can't afford to luxurious infrastructure. Qishuang nodded and said, each of you should do what you can. For the infrastructure of the commercial area, I will not have fixed requirements for you, but you must follow the planning drawings. Ensure the rationality of the layout. Understood. The glasses ninja and the middle-aged man slowly retreated into the crowd. Qishuang continued to say to everyone, because the overall planning drawings of the engineering department have not been completed, I will just give you a hint today. Once the planning drawings are completely completed, I will formally call on people from all walks of life to start renting land in the commercial area. Okay, that's all for today, let's go. Then, the ninjas turned around and left with their own thoughts. For those scattered civilian ninjas, they didn't have much savings and didn't know how to do business, so renting such a piece of land was useless. Therefore, they made a choice easily. It's better to spend the money on the house they live in. But for those ninjas from families, it's different. A smaller ninja family may only have a few official ninjas, but there are more ordinary clansmen in the clan. To support so many clansmen, or even to make the family more prosperous, they need money. Especially for those larger ninja families, such as the Terumi clan, there are at least hundreds of people in the clan alone. Add to that the various affiliated families, which can easily number thousands. The rewards from the missions of each ninja and farming alone are not enough to support and maintain such a large force. Therefore, ninja families of a certain size will run some other side industries. such as the medicinal materials industry of the Nera family in Konoha, the grain industry of the Akimichi family, and the fishery of Hazuki and dried persimmon. To run side industries, they must use shops and so on. They have to rent part of this zero rent land. However, the subsequent construction investment needs to be discussed with the clan members. Are you done? Come down and chat when you are done. Ahem. A weak voice came from the lower right corner. Qishuang looked in the direction of the voice and saw Hazuki pushing a wheelchair under the eaves. Tell me, what do you want to talk to me about? He jumped down and asked Hazuki Manayu's clone on the wheelchair. Hazuki Manayu glanced around and said slowly, let's find a quiet place to talk in detail. After that, he gestured to his brother who was pushing the wheelchair behind him. Hazuki immediately turned around and pushed the wheelchair to another secluded corner. So cautious, it's probably not a small matter, right? Qishuang guessed secretly and followed. In the end, the three of them stopped in an open space, and there was no fourth person in sight within a radius of nearly 100 meters. I don't have much time. Manu sat in a wheelchair and looked straight at Qishuang and said. Hearing him mention this, Qishuang felt a little heavy for no reason. There is no doubt that Manu Kazuki has the ability. Once he dies, it will undoubtedly be a great loss to the Hidden Mist village. There are ways to keep the other party's life, but they are all some secret techniques involving yang escape or yin and yang escape to revive the dead. Not only are they difficult to obtain, but they are also difficult to practice. Now, the other party only has a little more than 2 months left, and with such a short time, he has no time to prepare. He can only watch Manu Kazuki go to the end of his life. In addition to being a ninja family, the Shikamaru family has another identity. They are the exclusive supplier of medicinal materials for Konoha. The Inazuka family is a veterinarian in the village. The Choji family eats a lot, and it is not cost effective to buy food alone, so they grow a lot themselves, and are a large grain producer. Without these industries, a large family cannot survive. Chapter 569. Manu of Ghostlight sighed and said, I wanted Shuyu to inherit the Ghostlight family, but he is too young to convince the public. After I die, the Ghostlight family will inevitably be in turmoil again. Although it will not lead to a new war, the Ghostlight family will definitely suffer many unnecessary casualties. Especially Shuyu. Cough cough cough. As he said that, he looked back at his brother in the wheelchair and continued, Shuyu is nominally the most suitable candidate to inherit the position of the patriarch. After I die, those who aspire to the position of patriarch will definitely attack Shuyu. I'm very worried. Cough cough cough. Hearing this, Qishuang also vaguely guessed that the other party meant to entrust the orphan to him. He then said, after all, I'm an outsider. I'm afraid it is not appropriate to interfere in the internal affairs of your Ghostlight family. Interfering in other people's internal affairs is a taboo. If he interferes with the position of the next patriarch of the Ghostlight family, what will other families think? Could it be that the patriarchs of all families have to ask for permission from an outsider like him before they can take office? If you don't pay attention, you will probably face the condemnation and opposition of all the Kirigakure ninja families. Ahem. Maingetsu shook his head gently and said, I don't want you to help Shuayu fight for the position of clan leader. I want you to help take care of Shuayu. With you watching, at least his life is safe. Please, I'm not a nanny. How can I have the time to help you take care of the child? Qishuang glanced at the little boy in the wheelchair. Maingetsu laughed and said, I'm not really asking you to be a nanny. I just want you to give me a master-disciple relationship. With this relationship, they dare not do anything to Shuayu. Ahem. So, you want this kid to worship me as your master? Qishuang suddenly realized. Yes. Manu nodded and said, since I helped you to settle the war, please help me one last time. Ahem. It's no problem to become your disciple. Qishuang pinched her chin and said while looking at the little boy in the wheelchair, but you also know that I'm good at ice escape, and your Manu family is good at water escape. I can't teach him much. Although he can also use water escape, his foundation is far behind that of the inheritance family like the Manu family, which mainly practices water escape. That's enough. Hearing his agreement, Manu finally breathed a sigh of relief. But I also have a condition. Qishuang said to him solemnly. Say it. Manu nodded. I want you to take out all the ninja swords in your hands. Qishuang looked at him seriously and said, after this civil war, the village suffered heavy casualties, and high-end combat power is even more scarce. I hope to cultivate a new generation of the 7 ninja swordsmen, to fill the lack of high-end combat power. The 7 ninja swords have different functions. If they are used properly, the user can exert extremely strong combat capabilities. Compared with the orthodox and long training method, the ninja sword is undoubtedly a faster way to enhance strength. However, if the user relies too much on the ninja sword, once it is lost, the combat power will be seriously reduced. The disadvantages are very obvious. Okay. Manu nodded and whispered, after me, no one in the Ghost Light family can freely control multiple ninja swords. After I die, it is not a good thing to keep all the ninja swords in the Ghost Light family. It is more appropriate to hand them over to the village. The position of a clan leader is enough for him to worry about. If there is another dispute over ninja swords, it is not impossible for the Ghost Light family to be completely destroyed. Then, he slowly took out a scroll from his pocket. That was the contract scroll of the ninja sword. He opened the contract scroll, and after a series of slow, but actually fast seals, he pressed his palm on it. Spiritual summoning technique. Bang, bang, bang. White smoke rose from the scroll, and 4 ninja swords of different shapes suddenly appeared in front of the 3 people. Suayu, send these 4 swords to your teacher. Manu instructed his younger brother behind him. Oh. Although he was somewhat reluctant about his brother's arrangement, Shuai also knew that this was a way out that his brother had painstakingly left for him. He had no right to refuse, nor did he have the right to be willful. He could only accept it. Teacher Nanishuang, here. Shuai respectfully held the 4 ninja swords and knelt in front of the young man in white. Nanashi received the ninja sword and used chakra to absorb it on his back. He looked at the thin young man in the wheelchair and said, last time, I killed the red sand scorpion in your Hazuki family. Did you collect his body and puppet? Red sand scorpion? Hazuki Manayu fell into deep thought. After a long time, he nodded and said, it seems to have been thrown in the warehouse. Why, do you want this too? He didn't remember when Nanashi had performed puppetry. Not only Nanashi, but no ninja in the entire Kirigakure village could use puppetry. Therefore, even if their Hazuki family picked up such a precious puppet, they could only throw it in the warehouse as a rare collection. Take some time to send it to me. When I have time, I will take it to the sand village to exchange for money. Nanashi replied with a smile. Okay, I'll let Shuayu send it to you later. Manayu nodded. Okay, nothing else, I'll go back. Nanashi was ready to leave. Manu gestured to the little boy behind him and said with a smile, see you next time. Then, Shuyu pushed the wheelchair and slowly left with Manu Kizuki. On this day, the whole family of Kizuki received a shocking news. The man who pressured the whole Kizuki accepted Suiyu Kizuki as his apprentice. So far, those guys who were planning to attack Suiyu Kizuki after Manu Kizuki passed away had to put away their little thoughts. Fortunately, Manu Kizuki did not propose Suiyu Kizuki's succession as the patriarch at this time. This barely made them feel relieved. Otherwise, if Suiyu Kizuki used the man's name to compete for the position of patriarch, they would really be a little afraid. At the same time, all the merchants, chambers of commerce, and consortiums in the Kizuki village also heard the news that Kizuki was about to rent out the land at 0 rent. But those calculating guys also saw that Qishuang wanted to lure them to invest and then use it to trap them in Kizuki. However, seeing clearly is one thing and being able to refuse is another. Although the current Kirigakure village is depressed, with the Kirigakure ninjas there, they have absolute military power to deter the whole country. It is only a matter of time before the grandeur of the largest city in the land of water is restored. If they wait until Kirigakure recovers before investing in it to make money, the cost will naturally be very high. Especially as time goes by, Kirigakure recovers better and better, and the value of the commercial district is slowly divided up. If they act too late, they may not even be able to drink a mouthful of hot soup. Now, that person has offered a vacant land with 0 rent for 10 years. In other words, they have to invest a large amount of money in the land to rebuild the infrastructure in a short period of time, but in these 10 years, as long as they operate properly, they will only make money and not lose money. It is difficult for them to resist such temptation. This is a naked conspiracy. Chapter 570 The Land of the Fallen, Part 1. It was hard to resist such a temptation. After receiving such a rumor, many chambers of commerce, wealthy families, and financial groups began to prepare funds in a hurry, waiting for the day when Kirigakure officially released the notice. The news spread from one person to 10, and from 10 to 100. Soon, outside Kirigakure, the entire water country was boiling. Especially those guys who did not catch up with the first wave of war dividends after Kirigakure's truce were even more ambitious, determined to take a piece of land in Kirigakure and make a fortune in the next 10 years. As a result, more businessmen, wealthy families, and financial groups flocked to Kirigakure, just like sharks that smelled blood and were ready to feast. The depressed Kirigakure village has regained a lot of popularity because of the arrival of this wave of people. However, the low sheds all over the ground are incompatible with the increasingly vigorous popularity. About a week later, the engineering department completed the planning drawings of the entire Kirigakure village. The 5th Mizukage officially issued a notice, and the reconstruction of the infrastructure of Kirigakure village officially started. The people who couldn't wait any longer tore down the simple sheds and began to build their new homes in accordance with the planning requirements. For ordinary people, the notice from the Mizukage-sama had no special meaning. It was just a proof that construction could begin. But for those chambers of commerce and consortiums that were interested in leasing the commercial district, it was different. The notice also meant that the land in the commercial district could be officially leased. They could get the land in the hidden mist village. Merchants, consortium representatives, etc. flocked to the Mizukage office to apply for leasing land. However, they were all stopped outside by the guards. Look over there. The guard pointed to a newly posted notice next to it. Everyone came forward to take a look and realized that the land leasing work in the commercial district was presided over by the 7 Frost-sama. In order to prevent them from disrupting the order of the Mizukage office, the land leasing work was deliberately moved to the training ground on the other side. Then, everyone rushed to the training ground address on the notice. Because of the zero rent, it means that everyone has the opportunity to grab those future lands that will be worth every inch of money. If you go too late, you may miss the chance. In the training ground, Qishuang built a 2-meter high ice platform and stood quietly on it, waiting for the greedy guys to arrive. Not long after, he saw a group of people rushing over here. Fortunately, I had foresight and transferred the land leasing work to this side. Otherwise, with so many people, I'm afraid the Mizukage's office would be crowded. Qishuang was very grateful. Looking around, there were at least nearly 100 people in the front row, and there were more people pouring in one after another in the smoke and dust behind. The assistants who were responsible for helping were also shocked. Those wealthy businessmen and financial group leaders who were usually calm and composed now had red eyes, like wild dogs fighting for food. No one was willing to give in, and they ran towards this side desperately. I want to rent land, rent the best land. Qishuang. The middle-aged man who ran to the ice platform first shouted out of breath. Unfortunately, before he finished speaking, people behind him hurriedly followed and reported their requests, which immediately drowned out his voice. Sir Qishuang, I also want to rent land. Sir Qishuang, I want it too. For a moment, the ice platform was full of chatter. Silence. Qishuang shouted softly, and the people who were arguing with red faces immediately quieted down. Don't be so anxious. With the current state of Kirigakure, everyone has a share of the land resources in the commercial area, he said to the people below with a smile. At this time, someone in the crowd asked loudly, Sir Qishuang, because the land is rented out at zero rent, everyone is eligible to get the best location. How do you plan to distribute the lease? Let me make it clear first, our consortium is also one of the top 10 powerful consortiums in the entire Water Kingdom. If you allocate us some low quality commercial locations, we would rather withdraw from Kirigakure than rent your land. His words seemed to ignite a barrel of explosives, and the crowd quarreled again. Yes, our Chamber of Commerce is also a powerful and large one. We definitely don't want that kind of low quality commercial area. One person followed and echoed. Then, a voice in the crowd immediately refuted. Why? Master Qishuang said that all the land will be rented out at zero rent. Whoever gets it will own it. No matter who it is, they all hope to get the best land. They are naturally unhappy with the attitude of these big financial groups and big chambers of commerce to use their power to suppress others. This is not fair to them, a group of weak people. Seeing that the crowd was arguing more and more fiercely, and there was a tendency to fight, Qishuang shouted again, "Silence. I have already made a plan for the distribution of land. You don't need to argue anymore. Wait a little longer. When most people come, I will announce the distribution method." Hearing what he said, everyone stopped arguing and stood quietly waiting. About half an hour later, hundreds of people gathered on the training ground. Standing on the ice platform, seeing that fewer and fewer people were coming, Qishuang said loudly to everyone, "The land in the commercial area is indeed rented out at zero rent, but this also leads to confusion in distribution. Therefore, I thought about it again and again, and added another distribution rule." "Excuse me, sir, what is a distribution rule?" someone asked loudly and impatiently. Qishuang slowly said to everyone, "I divided the land in the entire commercial area into 5 grades from high to low according to the commercial value assessment. Then I numbered these 5 grades of land and placed them in 5 boxes respectively." As he said this, he winked at the 5 assistants under the ice platform. The 5 people stepped aside, revealing the 5 boxes on the desk behind them. Qishuang continued to say to the crowd, "Each of your chambers of commerce and consortiums will send a representative to draw lots to divide the land." Upon hearing this, someone immediately asked, "May I ask, Master Qishuang, can we grab the land numbers from the 5 boxes at will?" "Of course, it's impossible." Qishuang looked at him deeply and said, "These 5 boxes represent 5 different land grades and 5 different commercial values. How can you just draw them at will? What does the master mean?" The man asked subconsciously. Not only him, but everyone in the training ground cast inquiring eyes at the ice stage. Qishuang said solemnly, "These 5 boxes are qualified to grab them, based on their respective financial foundations. First class land requires chambers of commerce and consortiums with a net worth of more than 10 billion to be eligible to rent. Second class land requires a net worth of more than 100 million. Third class land requires a net worth of more than 10 million. Fourth class land." Hearing such a lottery rule, the crowd below suddenly exploded. "This is unfair. We don't accept it. Sir, you said earlier that we are all eligible to get first class land for free rent." "Yes, we are all eligible. We don't accept it." Chapter 571, Land Division, Part 2. Seeing the situation getting worse, Qishuang's face gradually darkened. "Fair?" he sneered, and his chakra turned into cold air. In an instant, the temperature of the entire training ground dropped sharply, and the hot air from everyone's breath condensed into white frost. The ground was covered with a layer of light white frost, and it felt like I had suddenly fallen into an ice cellar. Sensing that the atmosphere was not right, the training ground suddenly became silent. Staring at the few people who were the most noisy in the crowd just now, Qishuang said coldly, "What I say is fair. What I say is reason. What I say is the rule. Everything here is up to me. Even rabbits will bite when they are angry, let alone people." Facing Qishuang's arrogance, some people clenched their fists and gritted their teeth and said, "Sir, you are a dictator. We will report to the Mizukage." As if emboldened by his words, some people in the crowd immediately followed suit. "Yes, we have to report to Lord Mizukage. Go find Lord Mizukage." Qishuang sneered at the group of clamoring guys and continued, "Lord Mizukage has entrusted me with the land leasing matter. She will not interfere. If you don't believe it, you can try it." Seeing his fearless look, everyone's heart suddenly sank. The 5th generation Mizukage has been in power for a while, and everyone has vaguely heard some rumors about this person and Lord Mizukage. Judging from the current situation, I'm afraid that it will be useless to find Lord Mizukage. Despite this, some people still shouted unwillingly, "Lord Qishuang, what you are doing is really unfair. It is obviously zero rent land. Why do you want to limit the leasing qualifications of 5th class land?" Originally thought that they could get a great bargain and get a good piece of land with zero rent, but now such a restriction means that merchants with insufficient wealth cannot touch those good lots at all. How can they be willing to do this? Qishuang stood on the ice platform, looking down at everyone expressionlessly, and said seriously, do as much as you can. I believe you also know what kind of commercial value different plots of land have. Nowadays, the economy of Kirigakure is depressed. You may not need to invest too much to buy those good plots, but as Kirigakure's economy recovers, can your wealth still support the development and operation of those plots? By then, don't say I don't allow it. Even your peers won't be able to stand it, right? Maybe one morning, when you wake up, one of you may suddenly evaporate. After saying that, a playful smile appeared on his face. Human nature is greedy. An incompetent person who occupies the best resources will inevitably be coveted by others. When these merchants meet each other, they look friendly, but they have been tripping up their peers in private. Qishuang once saw a merchant hiring ninjas to attack his peers in Ming's office. Whether it's robbing goods, or assassinating and harassing, they will do everything to defeat their opponents. Just like the two sides fighting on the battlefield. However, they will not fight in person. If a guy who is only qualified to draw a 5th class land gets the right to lease a 1st class land, the result can be imagined. It is not impossible for him to disappear from the face of the earth. Upon hearing this, the group of people in the crowd, who were originally unwilling to do so, suddenly shrank their necks, turned their heads and looked around, and immediately got scared, and sweated on their foreheads. Because they saw that those wealthy representatives of the Chamber of Commerce and the consortium were looking at them with complicated eyes. Obviously, they had noticed this group of guys who overestimated their own abilities. On the ice stage, seeing that there were no objections in the crowd, Qishuang continued, however, the result of this lottery is too rigid, and I feel it is very boring. So, I added a little surprise for you. What surprise? Someone immediately asked curiously. Qishuang said with a playful smile, I drew 10 pieces from the 1st class land, and put them in the box of the 2nd class land. I drew 10 pieces from the 2nd class land, and put them in the box of the 3rd class land. And so on. I drew 10 pieces from the box of the 5th class land, and put them in the box of the 1st class land. After listening to his story, a fat middle-aged man in the crowd wiped his sweat and asked, excuse me, Lord Qishuang, if I draw a piece of land I don't want, can I return it? Qishuang put away his smile and replied, if you draw a high-class land from a low-class box, you can return it, but if you draw a low-class land from a high-class box, you can't return it. You are qualified to draw a 1st-class land. Don't you have the ability to operate a 5th-class land? What a joke. Among the 5 boxes, only the 1st-class box will draw a 5th-class low-level land, and the rest are low-class boxes that draw high-class land. It is understandable to return it if you don't have enough wealth to operate a high-class land, but if you have enough wealth and deliberately return it, that is looking for trouble. Yes, I made a mistake. The fat middle-aged man apologized with a smile. Finally, I have one more request. Qishuang raised his index finger and said solemnly to the people below, I will send people to inspect all the land you have taken out after the reconstruction and operation. If it does not meet the standards, I will take back the leased land. You'd better do what you can and don't try to be smart in front of me. After saying that, he stomped his foot hard, and the ice platform more than 2 meters high broke into pieces, turning into countless pieces of ice that fell to the ground. Originally, some chambers of commerce and financial groups wanted to take out a few more pieces of land and put them in their hands. After seeing his tough, threatening attitude, they had to extinguish the little thoughts in their hearts. Then, all the merchants, chambers of commerce, and financial groups spontaneously divided into 5 queues and began a long queue for drawing lots. The queue for the 1st-class land had the least people, about only 100 people. After all, not everyone has a net worth of more than 1 billion. Almost all those who can reach this level are collective chambers of commerce and consortiums, and individual merchants basically cannot reach the threshold. The queue at the 5th level area has the most people, accounting for nearly half of the number of people. As for the other 3 queues, the number of people gradually decreases from the 5th level to the 1st level. The difference between the rich and the poor is clear at a glance. Qishuang couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he saw it. It seems that, no matter in the past life or this life, wealth is still in the hands of a few people after all. The development of things always follows certain natural laws. Just like the food chain, the higher you explore, the rarer the high-level predators. The same is true for wealth. It is earned bit by bit from other places and then accumulated, not generated out of thin air. Therefore, the more wealth you earn, the more difficult it is. In the end, it leads to the result that a few people control the wealth. Just as Qishuang was standing on the edge of the training ground and sighing, a mist ninja came to him. Master Qishuang, there is a businessman named Zabuza who claims to be an old acquaintance of yours and wants to meet you. Should we let him come? The visitor asked solemnly. Fairness is a good thing, but absolute fairness does not exist. The words are cruel, but this is a reality. Just like demolition, move out the unsuitable people and leave the land for the suitable people. You can't leave, even if you don't want to, because those suitable people can use those lands to create more value. Unless you can replace the developer and create corresponding value. Chapter 572 Fulfillment. Koizumi. Hearing this familiar name, Qishuang thought for a moment. Oh, I know him. Bring him here. Recalling the previous problem of dealing with grain prices, he remembered the grain merchant who helped him ignite the first fire of price reduction. It seems that the man should come to him to fulfill his original promise. Not long after, his Miss Ninja subordinate led a thin middle-aged man over. Hello, Lord Qishuang. Zabuza saluted respectfully. Okay, no need to be polite. I have guessed your purpose. Qishuang waved his hand and said, just tell me directly, how much is your net worth? To answer your question, my total net worth is about 120,000 taels. Zabuza lowered his head and replied. For an individual merchant like him, having a net worth of 100,000 is already a very successful businessman. But if compared with those collective chambers of commerce and consortiums, it is still far behind. 120,000? That's the 5th rank. Qishuang thought for a moment, then asked, have you drawn the lot yet? Not yet. Zabuza replied in a low voice, and quietly looked up at the young man in white. Seeing that his face was normal, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that what the adult promised him should be done. But if the other party was unwilling to fulfill his promise, he could only suffer in silence and pretend that he knew nothing. Well, now I'll give you two choices. Qishuang held up 2 fingers and said seriously, first, I'll give you 2 5th-class lands. With your wealth, you can probably only rent 1 land, so I can give you an extra 1. However, if others ask, it's probably not easy for you to explain. Second, I'll give you a 4th-class land. In the box of 5th-class land, there are 10 4th-class land lots. Giving you one won't arouse suspicion, and people will just think you're a lucky guy. You choose it yourself. Hearing this, Koizumi was overjoyed and said, I want the 4th-class land. Very good. Qishuang nodded and immediately gestured to the Miss Ninja subordinate next to him. What do you want, sir? The Miss Ninja subordinate asked immediately. Go and steal a 4th-class land lot from the 4th-class box. Don't let others see it, understand? Qishuang whispered. Stealing a 4th-class lot from a 4th-class box is much easier than stealing the only 10 4th-class lots from a 5th-class box. Yes. The Kirigakure subordinate immediately walked towards the lively crowd drawing lots. About 5 minutes later, he came back with a lot for the 4th-class land. Sir, here. The Kirigakure subordinate handed the short lot, which was as long as his little finger, to the young man in white. Qishuang accepted the short lot and said, I don't want a 4th person to know about what happened today. Do you understand? I have forgotten everything about today. Kirigakure said with his head down. Well, go down. Qishuang immediately sent him away. Then, he handed the short lot to Koizumi and said, if you don't want others to find out about the problem, you'd better go draw the lot again. If the fact that he was pushing the price of grain down behind the scenes was really exposed, it would not be a big deal. He represented absolute force and power, and those profiteers could not do anything to him, even if they knew about it. However, it was not a glorious thing after all, and if possible, he still didn't want others to know. Hearing his order, Zabuza was immediately in trouble, and said with a wry smile, Sir, my wealth is enough to draw only 1 lot. The only lot. From the 5th-class box, I can still say that I'm lucky to draw a 4th-class lot. But if I have two lots, it is completely beyond my wealth. Wouldn't everyone see the problem? Do what you can. This is the rule set by Qishuang. Wealth not only determines the qualifications of these people to draw lots, but also determines the number of lots they draw. This is to prevent someone from maliciously grabbing land resources. You idiot. Qishuang glared at him fiercely and said, I didn't ask you to really draw. I just asked you to pretend to let them know that you drew a lot. Otherwise, if you don't draw lots, but you have a lot of 4th class land in your hand, how can you explain it to others? Hearing this, Zabuza suddenly realized. I understand. He thanked him repeatedly and turned away with a smile on his face. What he had to do was to create an origin for this 4th class lot. It can't come out of thin air. The drawing of lots for the land took about a day to be completed, and most of the merchants, chambers of commerce, and consortiums got what they wanted. However, a small number of people quietly left the training ground. According to the Miss Ninja under Qishuang, those people thought that his way of dividing the land according to assets was unfair, so they left in anger and gave up the lease of the land. Qishuang knew that those people would leave Wuyin and never come back, but he had no choice. There is no absolute fairness in the world. If everyone draws randomly and fairly as those people think, then he is stupid. If the 1st class land is taken by the 5th class merchants, the land that should have been built into a luxurious restaurant worth tens of millions will be built into a small store worth tens of thousands because of the lack of assets of the 5th class merchants. Isn't it ridiculous? Not to mention wasting precious land resources. Qishuang will also hurt the investment enthusiasm of those big chambers of commerce and big consortiums. It is even possible that these big investors will be disappointed and leave Wuyin because of this overly fair division method. He can't satisfy everyone. When you can't have both, you can only give up some and keep some. It would be really stupid to give up those big investors for this small group of people who pursue extreme fairness. Fortunately, only a few left in anger, and most people still understood his way of division, especially those big chambers of commerce and big consortiums that rented 1st class land. The 1st class land in the entire commercial district was rented out by them, and there was not much 2nd class land left. Only the 2nd class and below were left more and more. As the land was divided, several consortium representatives found Qishuang. Excuse me, sir, there is only a number on this sign. How can we confirm the land we rented? One person asked bravely. Don't worry, I have solved this problem for you a long time ago. Qishuang waved his hand and instructed his subordinates, send the detailed planning drawings of each section. Then hang up the general map and let them confirm the location of the land they rented. Of course, it is impossible to find the specific location of the land based on the land number on the sign. But if there is also a number on the general map, it will be different. As for what these guys were going to build on the land, he didn't want to ask, but the layout of the buildings must be strictly in accordance with the standards of the drawings. No one is allowed to build illegally. Then, Qishuang walked to the center of the training ground and used ice escape to build a 2-meter high ice platform. He stood on the ice platform and said to the people below, because of the workload, the engineering department is planning based on a large area and has not drawn up independent planning drawings for each piece of land. So, many of you have to share a drawing. I suggest that, before using the drawing, each person copies the area to which he belongs. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Chapter 573 Construction. Yes, your excellency is right. Everyone nodded in succession, their eyes already falling on the drawings hung up by the mist ninjas behind them. It was a nearly 10-meter long and wide plan of the mist village. The black lines divided the entire mist village into countless areas. However, except for the commercial areas on both sides of the street, which were outlined in more detail, the rest of the residential areas were very vague, and people could only barely understand that they did not belong to the scope of the commercial area. I think it should be, to prevent others from prying into the privacy of the mist village, and the specific plans outside the commercial area were deliberately hidden. Then, everyone used the signature numbers in their hands and began to look for the specific location of their leased land on the map. Not long after, bursts of surprised voices broke out in the crowd. Master Qishuang really did not lie to them. The land they leased was divided into 5 levels according to commercial value. Although they did not understand architectural planning, they could still analyze the commercial value of each section based on the direction of each street on the map and the estimated flow of people. The first class sites are mostly located on the main roads with the most traffic, while the fifth class sites are more remote with less traffic. The division of these 5 levels of sites is very reasonable. Especially those large consortiums and chambers of commerce are very satisfied with getting the right sites. Next, as long as they operate well, these excellent sites will become golden gooses, bringing them endless wealth. Not long after, several representatives of the consortium with red faces came under the ice platform. Lord Qishuang, we found that there are still many first-class sites on the map that are not marked with numbers. Is it because of omissions in the markings? Or are there blank buildings? If Wu Yin doesn't mind, we are willing to lease them and then develop and operate them. A fat middle-aged man smiled shyly. Qishuang looked at them with amusement and said, "You have a big appetite. You have rented so much land and still have money to spare. How dare you touch the private land of the Kirigakure ninja family?" Hearing this, they were struck by lightning and immediately broke out in cold sweats. They kept apologizing and said, "I dare not. I dare not. I made a mistake. I made a mistake." Then, they turned around and left in disgrace. It is true that they are rich, but they dare not compete with the ninja family. Although the ninja family cannot compare with professional businessmen like them in terms of assets, they have absolute military force. Once a conflict occurs, no amount of money will be of any use. You may die at any time. Therefore, ordinary people do not fight with ninjas. This is a recognized survival rule in this world. Fortunately, most of the ninjas are not focused on business. They do business just to make money to maintain their family's livelihood and daily expenses. They value the training and improvement of ninjas more. As long as there is no deliberate provocation, everyone will not interfere with each other and can live in peace. As the land leasing work was completed, various merchants, chambers of commerce, and consortiums immediately began to operate, hired people, and started the construction of infrastructure. Because of their great investment, the idle labor force of Kirigakure after clearing the ruins ushered in a wave of helpers. Stones, wood, nails, tools and other materials are consumed in large quantities, and the countless funds accumulated by merchants flow into Kirigakure village. Although this change is not particularly prominent in the fiscal revenue accounts of Kirigakure, the mood of the villagers of Kirigakure is obviously much better, because their income has increased. There is nothing on the land rented by Kirigakure. If you want to use it, you have to rebuild it, and reconstruction requires materials. The ninja world is like a wild universe that has not been developed much. The jungle outside covers the sky and the sun, and natural materials such as wood and stone can be used at will. But transportation and material collection require labor, which requires money to hire. Some materials that cannot be taken from nature require money to buy. Building and decoration require money, and furnishing structures require money. A lot of money has been invested in Kirigakure village, and it has flowed into the hands of Kirigakure residents through all walks of life, such as food, clothing, housing and transportation. The residents' lives became richer, which in turn stimulated the rapid recovery of all walks of life. The economic situation of the entire Kirigakure began to grow at an explosive rate. It was like a miracle, and it changed almost every day. Just as Kirigakure village began its busy basic reconstruction work, Nana Shuang found the Mizukage's office. "Did you finish today's training so quickly?" Terumi Mei asked him as she sat behind her desk. "I guess so." Nana Shuang nodded and said, "When I came here just now, I saw a lot of teams transporting wood outside the village. Wood is relatively abundant in this world, so most buildings are made of wood, and stone is just a supplementary material." "Well, what's wrong?" Terumi Mei frowned and asked. "Although wood is not as heavy as stone, most of the buildings in the Kirigakure village are made of wood. A large amount of wood was collected and transported in, which also brought a very heavy load to the streets and caused serious damage. It has only been less than a month since the official start of construction, and the streets have been repaired 7 or 8 times. The most serious main road has been repaired no less than 10 times. If it weren't for the fact that the wood was indispensable, she would have wanted to order a ban on the transportation of wood. Therefore, whenever she mentioned the transportation of wood, she felt complicated. Qishuang said slowly, manpower transportation is too troublesome, and it is also very time consuming and costly. In addition to the transportation of wood, the transportation of other materials is also the same. In today's Kirigakure, except for food and a small amount of other materials, most of the materials are mobilized from various towns in the land of water by various merchants, chambers of commerce, and consortiums. The longer the journey, the higher the transportation volume, and the higher the cost. Even many bandits have set their sights on those materials, which has increased the transportation costs invisibly. Qishuang continued, I think we might as well open an artificial canal outside the village. In this way, with the help of water transportation, we can reduce the transportation costs on flatland. We can even use the canal as a major transportation route to other countries in the future. Terumi meditated for a while and nodded. This is a good idea, but now the village is busy rebuilding its infrastructure, and I'm afraid there is no manpower to dig the canal. The canal is dedicated to Kirigakure village. Considering the flow of people and transportation volume in the village, the canal naturally cannot be dug too small. The workload of digging a large canal is probably only slightly less than rebuilding the hidden mist village. Nanashiro smiled and replied, as for this problem, I have already thought of a solution. We can go outside and hire a group of professionals to do it. I think it won't take long before the canal can be dug. Terumi listened suspiciously and said, professionals? Are there people in the ninja world who specialize in digging canals? Nanashiro laughed and said, don't Iwagakure have a group of professionals who are best at changing the terrain? The Iwagakure ninjas are the experts who are most suitable for civil engineering. Hahaha. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 574 Canal. I actually forgot about them. Terumi couldn't help but laugh. Most of the ninjas in Iwagakure are good at earth escape and are best at changing the terrain. Digging a canal is not like building a house. You only need to dig a ditch and slightly repair the riverbank. It doesn't require detailed work like building a house. Therefore, they can hire ninjas from Iwagakure to directly use earth escape ninjutsu to dig the canal in a rough way. In this way, the power of only one Iwagakure ninja is probably enough to match 1,000 digging workers. Whether it is labor cost, capital cost, or time cost, it is much better than hiring ordinary people. It just so happens that the overall planning of Kirigakure is basically completed, and the engineering department is not so busy. You can go to the engineering department and assign them the task of digging the canal. Terumi immediately instructed him. As for hiring ninjas from Iwagakure, you can wait until the engineering department makes the planning drawings of the canal, and then it will not be too late to issue a commission to Iwagakure. At the end, she added another sentence. Okay, I'll go to the engineering department right away. Qishuang nodded and turned to leave. After leaving the Mizukage office and turning left, about 200 meters away, there is a simple shed, which is the temporary office of the engineering department. Sir Qishuang. The guard at the door nodded and asked. Yes. Qishuang responded and then walked in. The entire engineering department is still much quieter than before the full-scale construction of Kirigakure, but everyone is still busy working. After all, the drawings that have been planned long ago are just their ideal results. In the actual construction process, some unexpected troubles will be encountered. For example, there are a lot of stones buried under a piece of land, which seriously affects the construction. At this time, they need to modify the original planning drawings. An assistant closest to the door was the first to discover Qishuang and immediately greeted him respectfully. Hello, Sir Qishuang. Then everyone in the engineering department also noticed this situation. Hello, Sir Qishuang. Hello, Sir Qishuang. Everyone greeted him one after another. Master Qishuang has come to the engineering department. Is there anything you want us to do? The assistant at the door walked up quickly and asked. Qishuang then said to everyone, I just came out from Master Mizukage and proposed to her a proposal to dig an artificial canal outside the village. Master Mizukage also agreed and asked me to give you the task of planning the canal drawings. After all, the people in the engineering department are professionals in geographical planning. After hearing what he said, they immediately guessed the approximate purpose of the canal. Then, a young engineering designer came out and asked in confusion, "The canal can certainly make the transportation from Kirigakure to the world more convenient and reduce various transportation costs. But in this way, it also gives the enemy the convenience of attacking Kirigakure directly through the canal. I'm afraid your proposal is not well thought out." Hearing this, everyone present was stunned, and then the entire engineering department burst into laughter. The young engineering designer was a little confused. He turned his head and looked around, and found that those who laughed were all older engineering designers. "Is there something wrong with what I said?" he asked everyone with a red face. Although he didn't understand why they were laughing, he still felt vaguely that those seniors were laughing at him. Unfortunately, everyone was laughing so hard that they had no energy to answer him. After a long time, when the laughter gradually died down, Qishuang asked him helplessly, "Little guy, how long have you been in the engineering department?" The other party looked very young, about 17 or 18 years old, and it seems that he has not been here for a long time. I was brought here by the seniors after the civil war stopped." Then, being asked directly by him, the young engineering designer was a little nervous and even spoke a little unsteadily. "Inexperienced? No wonder you ask such a question." Qishuang sighed with a smile. "Excuse me, sir, what did I ask wrong?" the young engineering designer asked seriously with a red face. At the same time, everyone in the engineering department finally stopped laughing and wanted to hear how this sir would explain. Nanashiro then asked, "What kind of escape technique do I, the Kirigakure ninja, excel at?" "Water escape technique." The designer answered without hesitation. Nanashiro said solemnly, "Since it is water escape technique, then naturally it can be used to its fullest in places with water. As a Kirigakure ninja, if you can't defend yourself against the enemy on the water, how can you defeat the enemy on the shore?" Hearing this, the young designer bowed his head in shame and said, "Sorry, I made a mistake." At the same time, many old men in the engineering department nodded secretly after hearing this explanation. It seems that this gentleman did not just make a sudden impulse to suggest digging a canal to the Mizukage. Then, an older designer came out and said with a little worry, "Sir, the Kirigakure village is now undergoing a large-scale construction project. I'm afraid there won't be enough labor to dig the canal." Qishuang waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about that. We will hire a group of rock ninjas from the Kirigakure village to help. Just survey the terrain as soon as possible and make a plan for the canal." The older designer breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It seems that I was worrying too much. Okay, the planning of the canal is left to you." After giving all the instructions, Qishuang was about to leave. "Sir, please wait." The older designer stopped him again. "Anything else?" Qishuang stopped and turned around and asked in surprise. The older designer hesitated and said, "Yesterday, a construction worker came to the engineering department to report that the several cold locks you left on the square hindered the progress of the construction. Please go and deal with them." "Okay, I got it." Qishuang nodded and strode away. Outside, the streets of Kirigakure village had been rebuilt, dividing the entire Kirigakure ground into countless clearly defined areas. Using the streets as a reference, everyone began to build their own homes, shops, or restaurants on the ground. The sound of knocking can be heard everywhere. However, the Kirigakure village is too big and there are too many infrastructures to repair, so there is a lack of materials and manpower. In addition, the construction of buildings cannot be sloppy, so in the past month, many of the Kirigakure buildings have only been completed by 1/3. Only those slightly inferior houses have been completed, which are much better than the previous simple sheds. Many people have moved into new houses. Although life is busy and hard, they are using their hard work to make the bad life better and better. Everyone's face is filled with a happy smile. Passing through the busy streets, Qishuang soon arrived at the square. Not long after Kiribi regained his freedom, he left the Kirigakure village with a group of cloud ninjas, and now only Hoshigaki Kasame is left locked in place. It is true that the land of water is composed of many islands, but the island where the Kirigakure village is located must be a large island, as big as the 4 main islands of Nihon country. If there were no such large islands, but only some small islands, it would be fine to feed a small number of people, but it would not be enough to become a large country comparable to the other 4 countries. Of course, for the ninja's leg power, the size of the island is meaningless, but for ordinary people, it is different. Therefore, the significance of the canal itself lies in people's livelihood. Chapter 575 Transfer. Seeing Qishuang appear, a construction worker immediately stopped his work and came to greet him. "Sir, you are finally here." The construction worker pointed at the cold locks on the square and said with a wry smile, "Please move them away." Qishuang glanced at the busy workers around him and asked curiously, "What are you going to do with this area?" Because of the last war, the underground water veins here were opened up, and the engineering department is going to build a fountain square here. The construction worker replied patiently. "Fountain square? That's not bad." Qishuang nodded and then sent him away. "Okay, you go down and get busy. I'll take care of it." "Yes." The construction worker retreated respectfully. Going around several construction workers next to him, Qishuang walked to the center of the square. At this moment, there are still 4 Miss Ninjas guarding here, responsible for guarding the frozen bronze tripod and Hashigaki Kisame. "You can also retreat. We don't need you here for the time being," Qishuang said to the 4 guards. "Yes, sir." The 4 Miss Ninja guards left quietly. "Why, Master Nanashima is going to change my prison." Hashigaki Kisame lay on the ground, leaning against the frozen bronze tripod, looking at the young man in white and mocking him, with a look of indifference. "You are such a person. Sometimes you really deserve a beating. Don't you have the slightest awareness of being a prisoner?" Nanashima sighed helplessly. "What do I need that thing for? It has come to this point. The worst that can happen is death. In this case, why not make yourself happy?" Kisame opened his mouth wide, revealing a mouthful of sharp triangular teeth. Nanashima shook his head and asked again, "Do you still remember what I asked you last time?" "I remember." Hashigaki Kisame nodded and said with emotion, "I didn't expect that Master Nanashima is not only good on the battlefield, but also good at governing the world." Although he was locked here, he could still clearly see all the changes around him and hear people's various discussions. Therefore, he knew that the reason why Kirigakure could recover quickly was closely related to Master Nanashima. He knew very well how dilapidated Kirigakure was after the war. The place was devastated and full of ruins. It was no exaggeration to describe it as people's misery. However, under the guidance of this adult, it was rejuvenated again in just about a month. It was like a miracle. According to his guess, it would take at least a year to recover to the current level. Such a person is simply too scary. If there was no extraordinary power like chakra in this world, I'm afraid that with the means of this adult, it would be easy to create a 6th country outside the 5 major countries. Every time he realized this, Kisame wanted to open the adult's head and take a closer look to see what was inside. Unfortunately, he couldn't even protect himself, so how could he have the ability to explore this? Moreover, whether he could beat him was still another question. "That's all?" Qishuang asked with narrowed eyes. "Otherwise, what else can I see besides these?" Kisame asked back with confidence. Hearing this, Qishuang shook his head helplessly and said to himself, "It seems that the time is still too short." As he said this, he walked to the side of the frozen copper tripod and put a hand on it. Some things cannot be turned around in a short time, and it takes a long time to polish. "Hey, what do you want me to see?" Seeing that he was dissatisfied, Hashigaki Kisame couldn't help but become more curious. "Some things are meaningless if I say them. It's more meaningful for you to find them," Qishuang replied seriously while mobilizing chakra. "Mystifying." Kisame snorted coldly, not hiding his disdain. Qishuang ignored it and quickly used his chakra to echo the cold chain, bringing all the cold chains back under his control. The copper tripod connected to the cold chain was stuck with the frozen black Zetsu, and the copper tripod was sealed with a 6-tailed rhino dog of the hidden mist village. Originally, after the death of this generation of Jinkriki, the village should have selected the next Jinkriki as soon as possible. But not everyone can be a Jinkriki. they must have a certain degree of compatibility with the chakra of the tailed beasts and be able to use the chakra of the tailed beasts. Only those who are qualified to be a Jinkriki are qualified to be a Jinkriki. Otherwise, the Jinkriki will not be able to fulfill the responsibility of sealing the tailed beasts and may also be attacked by the tailed beasts, run away and break the seal and die. Therefore, choosing a Jinkriki is an extremely troublesome and cautious matter. In addition, after the war, the reconstruction work is very busy. The current Kirigakure has no time to choose a Jinkriki, so the Six Tails has been put on hold until now. However, judging from the current situation, I'm afraid that there will be no energy to choose a Jinkriki this year. The Six Tails will have to be sealed by him for a while. Thinking of this, he made a seal with one hand and shouted softly, "Break." Then, under the control of his chakra, several ice chains connected to the outside of the frozen copper tripod broke with a sound, and only one was left connected to it. However, the only cold chain was injected with chakra by him and expanded several times. The frozen copper tripod was connected to it, like a huge cane with a gem on the top. Retract. Qishuang silently chanted in his heart, controlling the cold chain to retract into the water vein below. Huolala. In an instant, the huge cold chain was like a white giant python, holding a pearl and slowly retreating into the ground exit of the water vein. Rumble. Amid the friction and collision between the frozen copper tripod and the underground soil, the cold chain dragged the copper tripod and the black Zetsu frozen on it, and disappeared into the ground, leaving only a huge hole on the surface. Then, he used his ability to control ice to cut off the cold chain link on Hoshigaki Kisame and reshaped a pair of ice handcuffs and leg irons on him. "Where is my new cell, Master Qishuang?" Kisame stood up consciously, still with a faint smile on his face. Qishuang did not answer, but looked at him coldly and called out, "Come here. What do you want, Master?" The four guards from before responded. Qishuang solemnly instructed the four people, "Take Hoshigaki Kisame to the prison and lock him up. Use the highest level cell. Remember to give him medicine to suppress his chakra on time, and be careful of his chakra swallowing ability. For safety reasons, when you come into close contact with him, it is best to knock him out first." As he said that, he clenched his fist and punched Shark Face on the temple. Poor Hoshigaki Kisame didn't expect him to do this at all. He was hit by a punch and his eyes went black, and he lost consciousness. Boom. Shark Face fell to the ground. "Take him away." Qishuang gestured to the few people. "Yes." The four people responded in unison, and immediately lifted up Shark Face on the ground, and prepared to go to the prison. Then, Qishuang seemed to remember something and hurriedly added, "When the fountain here is built, remember to notify me. I still need to lock him up here." "Yes." The four people then carried Hoshigaki Kisame and disappeared from sight. Release. With a final shout, Qishuang dissolved the remaining cold chain on the ground, leaving only some ice cubes at the water outlet, temporarily blocking the water. Then, he called the previous construction worker and instructed, "If you want to release the water, just dig out the ice cubes on top. If you want to make additional diversions, then you can fill up the original water outlet." "Yes, remember." The construction worker nodded repeatedly. After explaining everything, Qishuang left quietly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.